Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 6:00 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Just a friendly reminder, if you do have your cell phones on you, we encourage you to put them on silent or vibrate for the duration of the meeting. We give the floor to the Honorable Councilman Parker to introduce this evening's invocation.
Thank you, Brother President. This evening, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a good day today. This evening, we are blessed to have Minister Veronica Taylor of the New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church, who's going to give us our invocation this evening.
First, honor God, who's the head of my life. To y'all honorable body here, bow your heads and let's pray. Father God, I'm coming to you as humble as I know how, to ask you to continue to take care of this world. You know what's going on over in Iraq. You know what's going on across this whole world. And for the woman that we lost, Samantha, that was good to this country, and we lost her at an early age, that have been doing your will and work, Lord. I want you to understand and ask you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit to comfort this country, this whole world, and let them know that you are in charge, not us as people, as a body. And I'm asking you, God, to continue to take care of not just only Pontiac, everybody, and cover their houses, their families, their friends, their children, their great-grandchildren, children that's not even born yet. I'm asking you to just put the blood of Jesus across the arched doors. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, it is so. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now have a moment of silence. We have been represented in our community in the past by Brenda Lawrence. She served as the member of Congress for Michigan, but specifically for Pontiac. And I'm very sad to report that she lost her husband of 51 years, MacArthur Lawrence, also known as Mac Lawrence, an amazing person and a longtime friend. So we extend our sincere condolences to Congresswoman Lawrence and her family on the passing to her husband, often affectionately known as Mac, but a really amazing human being who was very physically healthy, physically fit, physically active, but illness nonetheless strikes many of us at times that we don't even predict. So please join me in a moment of silence, honoring and remembering the life of MacArthur Lawrence, the husband of 51 years of Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. Thank you very much. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington.
Present.
Goodman.
Here.
James.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Rutherford. Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Quorum being established, and we anticipate that all members will be here present and voting, so we don't need to excuse any council member this evening. I do want to point out, so this is our regular meeting date and time, Tuesday, the Tuesday of every week, 6 p.m. And next week, though, that Tuesday falls on Halloween. So at the beginning of the year, the City Council voted to amend the schedule so that next week's City Council meeting is on Thursday. It's Thursday, November 2nd, and we'll work to continue reminding that, but I just want to put that out there early on in case you leave later on in the meeting. We'll make reference to that a few more times tonight. But the next City Council meeting for the community is next Thursday, November 2nd, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Moved by Carrington, or support.
Okay, it's moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Parker for this evening's agenda to be approved. That motion is now before us. Any discussion? Any motions? Any amendments? Hearing nothing further, roll call and adoption of the agenda as presented. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is approved. Is there approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. This evening's consent agenda has the October 17th City Council meeting minutes, including the closed session minutes. Roll call and adoption and approval of the consent agenda. Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda is approved, and all items in it are adopted. We have one public hearing this evening. It's the obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate application. The applicant is Red Chickweed LLC, and the property in question is located at 31 North Astor Street, commonly known as the former Longfellow School. So that is just east of MLK, but and south of M59. There are some parcels that are facing MLK, in addition to the largest parcel that has the former school located on it. The parcel number for that in question is 14-27-306-014. So the applicant had previously requested and sought from the city an establishment of an OPRA, or Obsolete Property Rehabilitation District. So there was a public hearing held on that, then ultimately it was voted on, that was approved. So now that there's a district on that footprint, now they are saying, okay, I'm in a district, I'm applying for obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate, meaning that their taxes would be held at the current rate. They'd still be paying taxes, but for up to 12 years, it would remain frozen, so that way they could use that for financing of the redevelopment and making the figures work. So just want to give everyone that procedural update. We scheduled this 2 meetings ago, so that way everyone knew that this was coming. And that's what we've got. So I'll give the floor to the mayor and the economic development manager if they want to give any more context before we open it up for public hearing, and then I'll explain a little bit about what's available for residents there. Mayor Grimel.
Well, thank you, President McGinnis. I will invite our economic development manager to the podium to get into all the details. I think you summed this up well. This is a application for an Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, or OPRA, tax incentive for this property. And our concern is that without this incentive, it may not be financially feasible to really redevelop it. And with that, I'll allow our economic development manager, Deborah Younger, to get into more detail.
Thank you, Mayor, Council President. Longfellows is applying for an OPRA. The former school is a 48,000 square foot facility. The new proposed development would call for retaining some of the school with commercial and public space on it, and then building out of 180 loft-style apartments. The project is proposed as a $31 million development. It would occur in phases, with the first phase being the school building, then the out parcels would be developed into loft-style developments. The foregone tax is estimated at about $950,000 over the course of the 12 years to answer that question. And I'm available to answer questions should they arise during the public hearing.
So that's the cumulative amount. What are we looking at each year then for that?
About 90,000, give or take.
Okay.
That's the estimate.
Okay. All right, so the community is aware. The resolution that would be acting on this is number 8 on the agenda, so meaning later in this evening's meeting we'll consider it. So this is a built-in time for residents to share their perspective, say if they like it, they don't like it, they have questions, they have concerns. This is dedicated specifically to this consideration. From here, that that application for this exemption goes to the state of Michigan. Is that correct, Economic Development Manager Younger? So they're looking to the municipality, in this case, our city of Pontiac, in terms of the green light, but there's still a state function that's involved with these and the other Oprah appeals or requests, so to speak, that have come before us already.
That is correct.
Okay. And there's a deadline that's coming up in a matter of days, so that's why, and this would be our final one that we would see anticipated for this calendar year, in part because of that closing window with the state of Michigan.
That is correct. The deadline is October 30th.
Okay. All right. So any other clarifying setting of the stage before I open the public hearing? All right. With that, the public hearing in regards to the obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate application for this property is now open. And the time, according to Verizon Wireless, is 6:12 p.m. That's when we've opened the public hearing. When you speak, we'll do it for 2 minutes up pop. If you can share your name and address, and we'll go from there. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, yeah. Carlton Jones, 1323 Oakland Drive, Pontiac, Michigan. This process, we've had several of these come through. I do want to say I was here before when they was trying to get the district in support of this. I cannot prejudge any developer as how successful he's going to be or any of them going to be, but I will say this developer reached out and said he wanted to do everything he could to try to engage Pontiac people in his process. So I think that we have the obligation, like we've done to others, to move his process along in hopes that he has a successful development. I support it. Thank you.
So really, anyone that wishes to speak can come, and there's no necessary preordained order. Any other requests to speak during the public hearing? Any other requests to speak during the public hearing? Any other requests to speak during the public hearing? With that, public hearing is closed at 6:14 p.m. All right, that concludes the one public hearing that we have on this evening's agenda. And again, that resolution related to that consideration will come up shortly as well. Now we have our one special presentation. And just a housekeeping note, we did originally have two special presentations we were planning on when we first set the agenda last week. One of them was from a neighborhood association that had concerns about the grading of their street. It's not a paved road. But since they had, the agenda first was considered and they had made that request, they have since contacted City Council and no longer wish to make that special presentation because the road was addressed, it was graded to their satisfaction, and the mayor, Public Works, and the administration, following advocacy by their District 1 City Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford, were satisfied, but the invite is extended if they need to come and formally address City Council in the future about that matter. So the one special presentation is about the zoning map updates to reflect past rezoning decisions. Before City Council gets into the weeds of this, we want to be able to, for the council and the community to understand what led us to taking these housekeeping measures. We give the floor to the mayor and planning division. Mayor Grunwald.
Well, thank you, President McGinnis. We discovered that the zoning map really had not been updated in many, many years, which creates a huge problem when people are trying to readily determine the zoning of a given parcel of property. And so our team has been focused since they arrived, since Manager Yandrick's arrival nearly a year ago now, not quite a year, but almost a year ago, on identifying the correct zoning for all properties in the city and updating the map. And we wanted to give a formal presentation tonight, which is this portion of the agenda, before asking City Council to approve the updated zoning map. So with that, Manager, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, for that introduction. Good evening, City Council, public. The goal for this presentation is to share the zoning map that the city is looking to adopt and the public process that is here. And so I really wanted to share what's available to property owners in the city to verify their zoning district. We've already received feedback as part of the Planning Commission process where there was a public hearing that was held. I'll share that item number 5 on tonight's agenda. If you go to the city's website and under departments, hit the Planning and Zoning Division and click right here. This has a lot of resources if you're doing any development, need a zoning permit, but there's a little section that talks about these zoning maps and the process here. And so there are 2 links here. There's a PDF, which is right here. This is what City Council is looking to formally adopt as part of this process. It is a brand new zoning map, and then if this is adopted, it will be incrementally updated every time there is a rezoning and posted to the website. The other link on that webpage is the online interactive, and this is something new, and I think the public has really, and the development community has been craving this to understand development in the city. So this is an online map. You can go in here. There are some search criteria up here where you can type in your address and find your place. But all you have to do is do a left click, and you can find the property here. So this is at 4 Douglas Street. The zoning district is R3. Forgive me, I'm just picking random parcels. This is R1. It is at 46 Rose Lawn. So this map should help people understand the zoning district of their property, the zoning district of their neighbors. And this is a tool that the city hopes to refine as we move forward, provide some additional widgets that might be of value to property owners, possibly like a measurement tool. But right now, this is really being used to identify what the zoning districts are that are before City Council. Going back to this map, I just wanted to highlight a couple other things. There is a legend down here in the PDF. We have made a few changes. I'll outline that under item 5, just with a few new colors to try to make it more differentiable between the different zoning districts. It's very challenging with this many zoning districts. But I also want to point out that for the first time, we have overlay districts. So we have the medical marijuana and adult use marijuana overlay district, which is the same boundaries. We have historic districts. We have the adult use marijuana overlay district, and that would be just for Woodward. That's the only district that was not approved as part of the medical marijuana. And then we also have conditional rezonings. And so this is helpful for property owners to know that there may be conditions that are deeded on the property that do restrict that future land use. So that is my presentation tonight. I just would encourage everyone to contact the planning department if you've got any further questions. We can be reached in City Hall, or the telephone number I'd like to give you is 248-758-2824. So,
Mayor Grimal.
okay.
Yeah, thank you, Manager Yandrick. The other thing I would invite people to do, because, as I said, the zoning map had not been updated in many, many years before we took office last year and identified this problem. I do encourage all property owners to check out our map on our website. First of all, give us some feedback about its user interface and how it functions, but also check out how it reflects the zoning of your property to make sure that it's accurate and that everything is in order. So I do invite all property owners in the city to check it out and just make sure that their property is identified correctly.
Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, so, I know the mayor said a couple of years, so approximately how far can you go back when it comes to, this is very important. First, I don't thank your team for updating this.
So the last zoning map was adopted or really passed and published in 2014. So we're going back 10 years. And as part of this research, we even went back and found a few things in 2013 that were not reflected in the map. So that's how far back we had to go. And finding the records was the most challenging part. Luckily, with technology, we could do some search criteria and find some documents. But we had to work with the city clerk's office, and then we had to go through what planning records we have to assign what rezonings took place and what conditional rezonings took place. And sometimes zoning districts don't follow parcel lines, and so that was another challenge as part of this process, making sure that we accurately reflected that within this map.
And my second question, so what kind of processes have you put in place to make sure that we continue to update this particular zoning map?
Absolutely. So we are utilizing Esri's GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, and we have several planners downstairs that are versed in this. So as part of this process, if there is a future rezoning, 10 days later, that rezoning becomes effective. And so immediately on that 10th day, that PDF will be updated and updated on our website. And then we will work with our GIS technician within the DPW to be able to ensure that our web map is reflective of that rezoning as well. So,
All right, thank you, sir. No other questions.
Further discussion? Questions? Okay, so before I ask my questions and before I recognize Councilman James, this would require 2 readings, correct?
Yep.
So just like any other ordinance amendment or zoning change, this is sort of in one fell swoop, making sure that we are up to date based on previous decisions.
yep. So the first reading is scheduled for tonight. It's item number 5 on the agenda. And then right now, staff is planning on next Thursday, November 2nd, at the meeting, taking the second reading.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman James, you have the floor.
Yeah,
And microphone.
I just wanted to clarify the zoning map, and I do appreciate the work that you did to be able to update this to the current situation. I just want to clarify that what you've done is to update the zoning map with all of the approved
Yep.
zoning changes, of those that have been approved through our planning department up to the current date.
Absolutely.
Because they, it's not that you made up anything there, but you're just
Yep.
documenting what the zoning department had done that had not been updated on the zoning map itself.
So that's a great question. So as part of this process, and we had to recreate this entire layer. We didn't have the 2014 layers. So, but the only rezonings and changes of this map, other than the colors changing, but the only zoning districts that are changed are the rezonings that were approved by City Council. So, and we found 26 of those that were rezoned that, and that list does not include conditional rezonings that conditional rezoning by state law has to start construction within 2 years. Otherwise, it returns back to the original zoning district. So of those, 26 were approved rezonings or conditional rezonings that are in effect today.
Okay. Could you send us a copy possibly of those statistics that you just
Absolutely.
quoted? Just, some bullets of what you actually did in updating this map.
Absolutely.
And then what you're showing on the screen is available online, because I'd like to have a hard copy of that.
Yep.
Is that available online so we can print one off in color?
This is a large map, so it is very challenging to print it out in color, but we can provide large exhibits. And actually, I can bring some up for when we have first reading for review by anyone in the public, maybe in the hallway here this evening. So,
Is it possible we could get one for the city council office, a large printout? Just,
The answer is yes.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. Further questions or discussion? How many parcels approximately does the city of Pontiac have?
We're looking at, it's got to be at least 40,000 parcels. And I'm guesstimating, I do not know the exact number from Oakland County, but I'd say roughly 40,000 parcels.
And it seems that the overwhelming majority of parcels are R1.
That is correct.
R1 residential, so single-family residential or churches or schools. That's the bulk of the, not exclusively, but the large land use. And many people are familiar with this, but when something is zoned, it's essentially pre-authorizing how one's land can be used. So no matter who the owner is, it's saying this is the pre-approved set of ways in which the land can be used. And that's why it's important for us to get it tight and right early on so people can plan accordingly. If they want to purchase or sell the land, they can go eyes wide open in terms of what's permitted. And that's why in some of these other matters, it's important for us to make the right choice for what zoning for the land, for what we want, what's the best direction moving forward for our community overall. All right, anything else on this presentation? Again, we'll have that first reading later. We've identified that we'll want to have some visual aids for the community to be able to look hard copy, for the council to be able to fine tooth comb it, but you can also do some online searching and zooming in. But the planning division, again, your number, if anyone has any questions or would like to do any research, can you share that, Manager Yandvik?
The best contact number is 248-758-2824.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, that special presentation is concluded. Thank you and see you soon. We're now at recognition of elected officials. It's a courtesy on our agenda if there's any other individuals who are currently holding office in the city of Pontiac and want to speak to the council and constituents. This is an opportunity. Any recognition of elected officials requests? Hearing none, we're at agenda address. This is where we've built into the agenda, similar to how we had that public hearing on one specific issue, but this is a standing opportunity for anything that we're going to consider tonight. This is a great time early on in the agenda to speak to it, so that way your voice can be heard as the City Council deliberates. Pro Tem Carrington, any requests this evening?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Ms. Erling Dow. Turn the mic on, please. To the right.
Thank you. Earlene Dow, 175 Court Drive. I'm here this evening because I am not in favor of the rezoning of the Mark Twain site. And I'm sorry that when I was here last week, I did not invite people to drive through our neighborhood. We have a nice neighborhood, a very nice neighborhood. People try real hard to keep up their property for the different holidays and stuff. They decorate. And then again, why do we want to change our residential site when we have manufacturing sites that are abandoned? They're vacant. Why not try to utilize those instead of rezoning? Again, the people in our neighborhood, we look out for each other. And I am one that definitely need people to help me. I have a husband that is disabled at this time, and the people know him in the neighborhood. And they watch over him. And I don't like it when people tell me that they might move. Why should we have to move? Let's try to keep our neighborhood nice. Let's try to do something residential there rather than changing it to manufacturing. I like what they're going to do at Longfellow. That's nice. Do we have to change the zoning for that? Let's find something where we don't have to change our zoning. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dow. Mr. Franklin McQueen.
Good afternoon. I was here on last week for the same identical thing, Mark Twain rezoning. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is supposed to be a Democratic forum here. And I'm just telling you about my opinion. I'm ashamed of my Democratic representatives. I'm very disappointed. Now I'm gonna give you some history. Years ago, we okayed Pontiac Motors to come into the state to give jobs to people here. If you remember that on Mount Calm, federal government had to come in and make Pontiac Motors clean up the lake back there because they dumped all that toxin in there. I was there. People don't understand what went on at Pontiac Motors. Now they're going to rezone and bring a battery plant in here, and they think in terms that there's nothing going to happen, everything's going to be okay. But let me tell you something. Remember this. The Titanic, people thought that it wasn't going to sink because it was put together good, but it sunk. That's history. Now, another point of history. Now, I know you're going to vote for this rezoning, but let me tell you something. If you vote, you okay it, remember this. Go ahead and vote. Judas, you know, he took 13 silver coins. You know what happened to him. You know what happened to Jesus Christ. So if you want to go down with Titanic, go ahead. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. Mr. Paul Wilson.
My name is Paul Smith Wilson. I live at 331 Joslin Avenue. As I stated last week, I have a petition that was signed by over 140 plus people that live in Pontiac Knolls subdivision that's asking to vote no on the zoning and also to vote no on the Mark Twain project. Also, I find it coincidentally that the planning manager will come and present an update of the plan, because if I look at pages 4 and 5 of the minutes from August the 30th, it stated that the master plan had to be updated in order to approve this project, in order to know where the city was looking at for a bigger picture. So you took 9 years from 2014 to now, 9 years the master plan had not been updated, and all of a sudden we got it done in 30 days. I find that ironic. The second item is when I look at the proposals that's being presented by the company to bring the manufacturing facility there, as I stated last week, the jobs that they are presenting to propose to us, some of them are apprentice jobs and others are EIT jobs. Some of the things that I didn't approve of when I look at it, it say additionally, and this is reading from the proposal presented by the company, additionally, we anticipate 20% growth rate for these job opportunities starting from the first year. Our objective is to bring renewal hope to a community that has endowed neglect over the past period of years. Second thing that I read, the rezoning enable the development of cutting-edge manufacturing facilities that will create jobs for low-income and underserved residents of the 6th district. Is that how you see us in the Pontiac Knolls district, as low-income people and underserved? Is that the same way that you see most of us in the city of Pontiac as to why you want to bring jobs here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Kenyatta Bowman.
She's not here.
Okay. Mr. Bill Maxey.
He's not here.
Ms. Beatrice Wright.
She ain't here.
Mr. Robert Bass.
He's not here.
Okay. Mr. Carlton Jones.
Oh, there's Ms. Wright.
Ms. Wright just came in. Nope, she doesn't want to speak. Mr. Jones.
Okay, first and foremost, I am very proud of the community getting engaged with this process. That's what we need is more engagement of residents in this process. I'm just proud. They stop me all the time. They tell me that they really are encouraging me to continue to push for what I push for. And I'm trying to work along with the city. But I'm just proud of them and their voice being heard, because I think each and every one of you all as elected officials know that your responsibility is to listen to the residents and try to do what's best for the residents. So I would say about this item that everybody's talking about. The company reached out to me today, knowing that I would do workforce development, and indicated they want to try to back off this project and listen a little closer to what the residents want at that site. And they want to work with TDC to see how they can try to do something that's worthwhile for the community. And I give them credit for doing that, because I was listening very closely, and it was really saying loud and clear that the residents was not approving of what they was presenting. I do believe what they're presenting works real well with our clean energy team of trying to find some ways that we can have some innovative ways to do some things here in Pontiac with clean energy and electrical market. So I'm going to try to work with them to see how we can find the right place to do what they're trying to do, if that's what they want to do. Also, I want to commend this other item that the planning director brought. I think that's an excellent map for us to have, because most people don't know how zoning can affect a community. And if you start becoming more aware of zoning, and all that ties into our master plan. The reason why we have so much R1 is our communities was built around R1 owner-occupied homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Renee Beckley.
Now, I'm going to ask the council and Tim, but Tim lives in an apartment downtown, so I don't know how this will work. How about if you live someplace for years and years and live in a nice neighborhood where you know most of your neighbors, and the neighborhood is pretty good, and the city council decides to plant it right near your house? I bet you'd be on the other side of the mile. How would that feel? No, William, I don't know if you live on Carr Street or not. I know you do, but I seldom see you there. But you're not really from here. You're from Flint. You're not a long time, but, you know, you're welcome in. But it's just like if you've been planted here a long time, we like quiet. We don't like a lot of noise. I live closer to the Pontiac steel plant. They didn't really bother me. Sometimes you hear them drop something or a truck honking, and that was it. They really didn't know they were there, and I didn't know they had moved. So this is right in the middle. You got houses in front. You got houses in back. You got houses on the side. And I never, because I went to Mark Twain School, that Gale Street, I even know there was a name to that street. That was open at one time, and then they closed it because I guess Pontiac Motors trucks was trying to turn them down on our street. So they closed that. That's been closed almost 50 years. So if you vote the plan in, but some of you will go out, you know, you don't have to sit up there anymore. If you don't respect us, we're not going to respect you. So, I mean, because y'all think y'all can do anything that you want to, and we have no say, and we're just going to put this near your house? No. If you want to take another step, there's also something called a court case, and you have plenty of those. I don't mind filing it, 'cause I have a little something I can file a court case now. So if you want another court case, be my guest. Make our day. But don't vote this in, please, for your own sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beckley. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
I came also to speak to item 3 on the agenda. And I think one of the confusions then, let me take 1 minute, seconds to correct that, because that's what Mr. Wilson brought up too. This picture you see of a map is not something you're adopting. These zoning changes have already been made. They've been approved by the Planning Commission and by you as council. This is just a picture that updates, okay? So you don't have to approve the picture with 2 readings because the zoning map changes have already been done over the years. This is just a pictorial representation of what has already been approved. So just so that was some confusion about that. But anyway, last week I did come when I saw the concern about the people from the Mark Twain area. And I came really to speak just because I just want to make sure they got a fair hearing. In some public hearings I've noticed in recent past, people didn't get a fair hearing and there was no dialogue or anything, and I just spoke to that. And there were some answers. But even after the answers that were given, it seems people still were skeptical about that. And I think that's a whole other issue, all right? One of the things is anytime you have 140 people who've signed something, that represents the view of that neighborhood. And I heard somebody say, well, sometimes council has to vote for the best thing for the city. Let me tell you a little secret. The citizens are the city. What's good for their neighborhood and what they want for their neighborhood is good. So I hope you take that into consideration. I think the problem you have now is that there's so much skepticism about this administration, which has introduced things and given people the okie dokie, that they're really not believing what you're trying to tell them. And that's a horse of a different color. I don't have time in 2 minutes to get into that, but I'll tell you more about what I mean in public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Waterman. Mr. Chuck Johnson. Ms. Darlene Clark.
Hi, my name is Darlene Clark. Michael, this is concerning zoning. In the city of Pontiac, as you all well know, especially the ones who's been here for a long, lengthy time, and I'm not talking about 7 years, 13 years, I'm talking people who's been here well over 25 years plus. They know how big city of Pontiac used to be. We know when it comes to rezoning, we know rezoning means shrinking. We know that means bringing in businesses that have opportunity to get low buildings. Apparently, the schools that were closed, Mark Twain, Longfellow, they have a very good cap on them, but the promise was given that we was going to put something in there to benefit the residents. That was your word in trying to get into, to get on your council seat and to get in office. You said, I'm going to do for the neighborhood, I'm going to do for the residents. My question to the council and to the mayor administration, where is it, and show the people, especially where you're rezoning, how is that helping the residents within the neighborhood? How is that seeing what the residents are saying? You want to pat yourself, and you do it very well in giving yourself credit, but you're not giving yourself credit for pushing out the people. Not so much as Mark Twain, not so much as Longfellow, but the investors that you have coming into our city are not reputable investors. They've already established business in other areas just to bring into our small little city that every week our council people are approving rezoning. You're approving, and every time you approve a rezoning area, you're shrinking the neighborhoods. You're shrinking the environment and pushing the resident out. You're not working for the people. You toot your back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You guys pat yourself on your back more than the people pat yourself, but you're not listening. You're rezoning to push the people out.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Ms. Gloria Miller.
Before you start the clock, hold on 1 second. Okay, after last week, in regards to Mark Twain, and hello to everyone in here that I know, guys, good seeing you guys. Being here, you won already by being here. I just, as Carlton mentioned earlier, I wish more residents to come down and get engaged. Because this is not just the only project they can throw on the city. Y'all missed the other ones. But they caught the wrong one this time. I'm glad y'all caught it, okay? Thank you. I looked up and I went to Google, and I love Google. And this is what I found out about this project. It's called Allure, Altour, I'm sorry. And I'm gonna read this. Altour is a CDC, which is Mr. Carrington's district, CDC, I assume, is committed to assisting the residents of Pontiac. We recently provided grants to two local recipients in the District 6 Community District, which is yours. Councilman William Carrington and Mayor Tim Grimer was on hand for the grant presentation. I have a picture here with your council person, the mayor. This is way back in April when he met at the CDC. I don't know if you guys were there. So I Googled it, and just what I seen. So I'm assuming that's what they're bringing to Mark Twain. They even got some other resident. Actually, the people that was here last week that made the presentation was here as well. So this has been going on ever since at least April. Okay? And the mayor know about it too, because they both on the picture. I love Google. It tells everything on you. You put everything on it. So with me saying that, I'm going to say this is the problem. And that's what we find with so many elected officials. Everything I did, I took it to my people. I did nothing. All I did was sit back in the room and I said, you guys tell me what to do. Because I work for you. And when you tell me no, no is no. No is no. So, that rezoning, the zoning, what they're doing, it's just not this project. Right around your city, everything is being redone. Pay attention, people. They're closing us in. They're locking us out. It's gentrification. It's zoning. Every time I come down here, it's zoning or ordinance. And I want to ask the clerk, and I want to put you on record for this. Mr. Clerk, when I was on the council, when we had resolution, did we not bring the resolution before they voted for them? Why aren't the resolutions in the agenda? Why don't we know what they're voting for? We get the resolutions next week after they've been voted for. And in the resolution, it tells you what it is, what it's about, how much. And if you look at your agenda, all these resolutions, not one is in there.
It does conclude your time.
Not one. Ask them why.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. That concludes our agenda address.
All right, that concludes agenda address. A few of the questions and feedback that were offered up, I will try and address them when we get to those items on the agenda. But it will state that ordinances, resolutions, the text of those proposals are available ahead of the meeting. You can either access them online or you can access them from the city clerk's office. And for many of these items, as we're diving into, they're over the course of multiple weeks. So you have the opportunity, even if you hear about it at one meeting, then there's certainly a window of opportunity to sink your teeth into them and review them ahead of time as well. But always, if a resolution is adopted, that resolution language goes in that week's minutes. So you'll see the last week's meeting, all the items that were adopted. That does, right, because it's the official record of a public body. It's not the only opportunity, but it's also the official record to say what was adopted. And we always welcome opportunities for you to be able to review, read, and research as well. All right, we're at number 3 on the agenda. It's adoption of an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac. And it's changing the zoning classification for a specific parcel. It's been spoken about before, but the address of 729 Linda Vista, formerly the Mark Twain Elementary School of the Pontiac School District. This is the second reading. Any ordinance, including a zoning change, requires at least 2 readings. This is that second reading. This is the date that was published in the newspaper of record saying when that second reading is. The staff is interested in seeing it postponed, meaning that it would come up yet again next week and a vote wouldn't necessarily happen, but I just want to give the floor to the administration and staff to offer the perspective and if that's still your interest before we either consider a postponement or we deliberate further. Mayor Grimel.
I think we're completely flexible and defer to council, but we're okay if it's taken up this evening.
Okay. So any zoning change, it's an application, it's a request. The city has received this request to say, here's the current zoning, they want to see a different zoning. So it goes to the Planning Commission, which are made up of our neighbors, residents. So the Planning Commission, they did a few different presentations, they held a public hearing, they sent a mailing to those that live within 300 feet of the parcel. The law states that 300 order in the chambers within 300 feet, all property owners, that mailing goes out. The public hearing, order in the chambers, order in the chambers. The public hearing is held at that planning commission. I'll let the staff, when they go through the review, provide the timeline on when that happened. But then it ultimately comes that they make a recommendation. Any zoning matter has to come to the community through the city council for us to render that verdict to determine will it happen or not? Will that zoning change happen or not? The administration has indicated that they are open to either it being postponed for another week if further research, review, and community engagement is needed, or if we want to make a decision as a city council tonight. But just since before I guess I turn it over to the staff, is city council feel strongly about wanting to postpone it another week, or?
No.
Okay, sounds like there isn't a real appetite for postponement. Clerk Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to provide some clarity on what a protest petition is, because there have been some rumors out there in the community. I'm reading from the section of the ordinance, which is in regards to the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, PA 110 of 2006. And it says, the protest petition shall be presented to the city clerk and forwarded to the city council before final legislative action on the amendment, and shall be signed by one or more of the following: the owners of at least 20% of the area of land included in the proposed change. Publicly owned land shall be excluded in calculating the 20% land area. The owners of at least 20% of the area of the land included in the area extending outward of 100 feet. And the reason why I say that is because although the community submitted 140 names for the petition, 100 feet, there are only 55 property owners. And of those 55 property owners, 2 parcels are owned by the city of Pontiac, so that makes it 53 property owners. So 20% of that would be 10.6. And when our office reviewed all of the petitions that were submitted, there were only 7 names that were within 100 feet. So they did not meet the requirement for a protest petition. So I just wanted to, all of this information was disclosed to Mr. Wilson prior to, along with the list of all the property owners. As I will state publicly over again, the clerk's office does not get involved in any policy decisions. All we are is information resource for the community. So therefore, I just want to provide that clarity in essence to the public. And I said, yes, a husband and wife may own a piece of property, but you only needed one of them to sign because it was property owner. So there are a lot of people who could have signed the petition that may have been renters, but as it relates to state law, and as everyone knows, state law supersedes city law, city ordinances, it had to be the property owner for it to be a protest petition. And all a protest petition would have done would have required 5 council members to vote for it as opposed to 4. So I just want to provide that clarity.
Right, so that doesn't negate or eliminate the feedback and the input and the value of the citizen and resident perspective, but we just have to know in terms of the legal impact. Does it trigger something? And so you've raised a good point. The first part of that is if 20% of the property owners of a parcel. So let's say somebody had asked to rezone a whole street, and then those property owners would be able to say, hey, I do or I don't want my own property to be rezoned. But per my understanding of this request, it's all owned by the applicant. It's the former Mark Twain School. So that first part doesn't qualify because the applicant is the only property owner of the rezoning. Planning Manager Yandrick, is that correct, that at least what's being proposed, is there any ownership other than the applicant?
No, you are correct that the owner owns the only property asked to be rezoned.
Okay, and so then the second qualifier in state law is if within 100 feet of the parcel or parcels in question, so your office researched what that is. Here's the number. It's 53 that aren't owned by the city, that are privately owned, and so then that determines the 20% figure. Okay, so per the city clerk's research, that state law hasn't been triggered, and so it's still the same number of city council members that would require to make a zoning decision. Okay. All right. So not hearing a motion to postpone, I'll give the floor to the planning manager for you to give some information again for a second reading. And Mayor, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to address a couple of the questions or comments that were made, and I want to reiterate, I know that President McGinnis already touched on this, but the minutes come out after a meeting, and that includes documentation about everything that was voted on at that meeting. But before the meeting, the resolutions, the supportive documentation is all included in the council packet. And I believe, I'll defer to Clerk Doyle, I believe that was true for this agenda item when it was posted, when the agenda packet was posted online Friday. And I also believe it was the case the week before that with the agenda packet that was posted online the week before this past Friday. But again, it's the clerk who actually is posted, so I invite him to verify that. Yeah.
President.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is correct. The packet goes out on Friday. If there are any additions or changes made, the website is updated. The city's website is pontiac.mi.us. If you click on the city council page, there is, for each meeting date, there is the agenda. You can click on that. All the documentation with all the resolutions are there. And then after they meet, the approved minutes are put as well on that. And I will mention that I'm basically the first clerk that included the approved minutes. The clerk's office is all about transparency. So I want to make sure that's clear to the public.
Thank you. Mayor Graham.
Yeah, in addition, of course, this went through the Planning Commission and was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, I believe in September that was, may have even been August. And there was a question raised about Council President Pro Tem Carrington and I being at a event with Altour, and we were at that town hall. It was a public forum designed to help get the word out about this project and take questions and hear any concerns about the project. That occurred back in April of this year at the Ruth Peterson Center. It was open to the public. It was well attended, and most people in attendance expressed support for the project. And then President Pro Tem Carrington organized a second town hall or public forum 2 weeks ago now, also at Ruth Peterson Center, that was well attended. And we didn't take a formal vote there, but it seemed as though most people in attendance there also were in support of the project, although there were people who expressed concern. So,
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers. Our council rules require limiting of public outbursts.
Yeah. Like
Mayor
I said,
Graham
there were certainly people there who were not in favor, but there were more people who spoke in favor than against.
Order in the chambers. We give the floor to the planning manager to walk through the slides for the information.
I have an abbreviated version of the presentation just to set the table for City Council. So this is the second reading for KZMA 230011. This is a rezoning request from R1, which is one family residential, to C3, which is corridor commercial. It is a conditional rezoning. This went for informational session in August. There was a public hearing. We did have residents of the neighborhood that spoke at that public hearing on September 6th. On October 17th was the first reading, and then tonight is at least City Council's second reading. This is the zoning map showing the current zoning. This is the subject area in the green. It is surrounded by R1 in the neighborhood right here. And then there is C1 in this pink color right here, C1 in Glenwood, and then there's also a property zone C3 not far away, which is the same zoning district that's being requested here. This is a location map just for reference, identifying the entry point along Perry, and then and this is Joslin as well, that currently dead ends right here. This is Linda Vista, this is Vernon, and then the street down here is Gage. So the proposal is the applicant wishes to rezone the property, to redevelop the property for a parts assembly facility. The desire is to manufacture mobile solar EV charging stations. The applicant proposes two entrances, one off of Joslin, directly off of Joslin for trucks, and an employee entrance close by to where the existing parking lot is for the former school. The applicant offered two conditions of approval with this rezoning request, and this is only a rezoning, so there would be a future site plan process as well. The overview of this is C3 was requested by the applicant in discussions with the city. Joslin is the start of the commercial corridor to the north, and light manufacturing as defined in the Table 2 of the zoning code requires a special exception permit. The school has been vacant for 10 or plus years. The building is in poor condition and vandalism and trash are considerable. C3 is an unusual rezoning request, but the applicant's proposal aims to add jobs, provide training, and wants to use the use to be integrated into the neighborhood. And any parts or assembly or light manufacturing production involving batteries or any toxic materials are not considered light industrial and not permitted in the C3 district. So I want to make that clear. Batteries are not permitted to be stored with this rezoning request if it were to be approved. And, you know, parts assembly is a little different than light manufacturing, but that is the closest designation that we have in the zoning code that with what they would be using. This is the overall layout of a concept design, just showing in yellow where the entrances would be. The one on the left would be their trucks that would be taking inventory in and out. They have expressed to the city that this would not be a frequent occurrence and potentially not even a daily occurrence. And then the employees would be parking at the northern parking lot. Now, the applicant offered two conditions of rezoning. Number one, outside storage will be prohibited on the property. And number two, the following land uses will be prohibited under this rezoning request. If this rezoning gets approved, there is a conditional rezoning that will be, the mayor will execute, we will bring to a future city council meeting. These conditions will actually get recorded on the property, and so it helps the property owner, future property owners, and the city understand the limitations that would be in place for future development on this site. So, but some of these prohibitions include bakeries, confectionaries, bars, taverns, alcohol service establishments, child care centers, daycare centers, funeral homes or mortuaries, hotels or inns, medical marijuana centers and facilities, which are not permitted here to begin with, but based on it is something in our zoning code, and just in case there was a change in the future, this is protecting this property to make sure that that never comes in. There is a personal service establishment that would be prohibited, a pet boarding facility, a restaurant, retail sales, terminal public transportation, toxic or hazardous material storage or distribution, hospitals, veterinary hospitals or clinics, outdoor retail sales, and outdoor sidewalk or patio dining. These would all be prohibited. Again, when City Council is reviewing a rezoning request, there are 10 standards, the guidelines to be considering for a rezoning request. Number one is the consistencies with the goals, policies, and objectives of the master plan. Their redevelopment is something that is explored in the master plan, and while the future land use does not have this here, there is definitely considerations for finding the best uses for properties. And with that said, on this, you know, there still is a site plan process ahead that proper screening and landscaping to protect neighboring properties can be considered by Planning Commission. The second standard is compatibility of the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features. Evidence the applicant cannot receive a reasonable return on investment through developing the property with one or more uses under the current zoning district. And R1 does not permit many land uses outside of residential homes. Number 4, compatibility with all potential uses and surrounding uses. Number 5, the capacity of city utilities and services. Number 6, the capability of the street system to safely and efficiently accommodate the expected traffic generated by the uses permitted in the requested zoning district. Number 7, the boundaries of the requested rezoning district are reasonable in relation to the surrounding and construction on the site, and will be able to meet the dimensional regulations for the requested zoning district. With this one, there's plenty, with 9.6 acres, there's plenty of space to meet setbacks and meet all the requirements for the site. So variances are not anticipated for this item. Number 8, if a rezoning is appropriate, the requested rezoning district is considered to be more appropriate from the city's perspective than another zoning district. 9, if the request is for a specific use, the rezoning the land is considered to be more appropriate than amending the list of permitted or special land uses in the current zoning district. And 10, the requested rezoning will not create an isolated or incompatible zone with the neighborhood. Again, the analysis that I shared last week is that this site has operated for a school for many years, but has been vacant for 10 or plus years with blight and trash littering the property. The applicant is proposing to rezone to C3, which is at the terminus of Joslin Road, which is a corridor in the city. The applicant has provided a condition to restrict future land uses on the property with prohibiting high impacts of traffic, noise, and pollution that would be a detriment to the community while promoting their use and other uses aimed to complement the neighborhood. Planning Commission has the ability during the special exception process to require landscaping and other site modifications to further protect the surrounding property above what the zoning code requires to ensure the proposed use is adequately cited. So Planning Commission's recommendation at the public hearing was approval 6-0 with the conditions supplied by the applicant restricting land uses, and then after the Planning Commission hearing, they volunteered a condition prohibiting outside storage. The last thing I do want to mention with Councilwoman Rutherford's point last week is members of the planning team had a conversation with Oakland County Assessor's Office at Equalization Office with the assessors. They acknowledge that the cleanup of blight is likely to lead to a small spike in property values, those surrounding properties. They cannot guarantee what a future land use would do, whether it's residential or whether it's this use. They cannot guarantee what the property values are going to be in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years. So I just wanted to clarify those points for your decision tonight. So.
All right, thank you very much for that information. We'll have further deliberation. There was deliberation last week, but City Council members, what's before us is do we, on behalf of the citizens of Pontiac, approve the conditional rezoning? And again, this rezoning is with those conditions outlined if adopted. Discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Carrington, followed by Mayor Grimal.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. I guess everybody's waiting on me to respond. I see everybody looking at me. First, I want to say something, particularly to my district. In the last several days, I have spoken with a lot of people, got a lot of calls for and against this particular project. But one thing is that I do want to debunk the narrative that has been set, is that people say I didn't bring it to a meeting. I actually set up a meeting, just as one of the residents said that she saw some pictures of me in the community taking a picture with this particular company. Yes, I set that meeting up specifically to get community buy-in or buy-out of this particular project. In that meeting, only one resident in that meeting said they was against this project, and that resident is sitting in his audience right now. So I wanted to debunk the rule or this myth or narrative that it wasn't community buy-in for this project. Now, I've heard everyone, I receive your calls, I receive your texts. I've been said that I'm getting paid under the table for this project. It's amazing so much information that has been passed around. I'm someone that's a man of integrity. I stand on what I say. I stand on doing what's right for this community, and I live in this neighborhood. So I would never bring anything toxic to a neighborhood or anywhere in the city that I live in. I just want to say that to this community. Now, today, my vote will be no, not because this is not a good project, but it's because of me listening to the residents that stay within this neighborhood. So again, I'm not saying it's not a good project. I'm saying I'm listening to you because you guys went to the street, knocked on some doors, and said you didn't want this project. Now, but moving forward, I just want to also and say this, is that the 6th District has a lot of issues when it comes to abandoned school properties in the 6th District. We have to be forward-thinking. We have to think about the future because basically I'm 58 years old. I may not even be here in the next 10 years. So this project wasn't for me. It wasn't for our seniors. It was for the future. It was for your grandkids, and a lot of those men. Can I speak? I've listened. I haven't said much. I've listened. I listen. So tonight I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna speak. And I didn't interrupt nobody, so please be respectful. That second meeting was very toxic. And those that was in favor, well, not in favor of it, were pretty overwhelming to those that were in favor of that project. So people do not want to be arguing with their neighbors. No one wants to argue with anybody. People have a right to support. People have a right to not support. But we still need to be respectful to each other. We stay in the same neighborhood. We stay on the same streets. So today, my vote will be no because I'm hearing more residents do not support the particular project. And thank you.
Further discussion? I do want to acknowledge something that is pretty rough that everyone, I think, in this room or many of you know somebody firsthand that lives in a neighborhood that is being pulled down, dragged down by a massive, major blighted property. For many of us, it's a school. For this particular neighborhood, where my father also lives, where I lived for a while with him when I was younger, that unfortunately was the heart and the anchor of the neighborhood, the Mark Twain School, from the late 50s until the 2000s. And that's what's really heartbreaking. We have about 20 different neighborhoods that are in very similar situation, where what had been the rock, the glue that held together a neighborhood, is now the anchor that's around the necks of those neighborhoods. I live in a very unique neighborhood that can't really compare, but I do live across the street from a school that has been empty for almost 40 years. And I know that in representing District 7 on the east side, we even have a school, Purdue, that's now owned by all of us, meaning you and I are the owners of that blight, that vacant school that's dragging down and drowning the neighbors that live around Sanford and Pike and Francis and Ardmore. And there have been a very few success stories where in the 90s and 2000s, they've either been torn down, like, for example, the old Wilson School now has a church there. On the east side, the old McConnell School, well, it had a senior center, and we've seen the blight that now drags the neighborhood down after that fire, and that stalemate when it hasn't been rebuilt or resolved, cleaned up. And so we have a very serious problem that not one, not two, not five, but almost 24 neighborhoods are contending with. And there's one particular school that's trying to be turned into a community center, and it's coming in the price tag of 26, so
It's 30 million.
with construction, 30 million. And where does that stand? The neighbors have had to deal with it being vacant in the meantime, and to be a blight on that neighborhood near Monroe and Murphy and Huron, the Webster School. In another instance, we now, the taxpayers of Pontiac, have recently purchased the former McCarroll School at Glenwood and Montcalm, also in District 6, but granted a different neighborhood. And that historic elementary school, the plan now is to tear it down and build a new youth recreation center for our community's children. And that won't be cheap. And And here we are right now, the property is still standing as we work to make sure the land is remediated before we tear it down, and it's going to be a minute. And in the meantime, everyone that lives on Wolf and Nelson and Glenwood, they have to live with that, and it is suffocating. I am certain there are people that have moved from neighborhoods because of that blight still remaining, and I recognize that it is a policy challenge that we have to contend with. And this won't be the last conversation we have on it. This won't be the last site that's come forth. One resident brought up the Longfellow School that's in District 7. That did have to be rezoned, and I did vote in favor of that rezoning because it's a higher residential use. So it went from the R1 zoning up to a higher R3. So that's a rezoning request that's come. The former Weaver School was an application we received off New York Avenue north of Walton. That ultimately was not approved, but that was one where it's a former school that's been at one time used as a church, but vacant for many, many years, and it's the heart of that neighborhood and is being dragged down from that. So I just want to give that context because that is very much in my mind and my calculation in terms of what's the best route to go. And no one who lives on Linda Vista or Court or Victory or Crescent or Gage should have ever had to live by Mark Twain School empty and rotting, abandoned. And it's a very serious and difficult challenge that a lot of us have been saddled with when the school district had so much change and loss and then financial woes. As General Motors continue to shrink in our community, it's not the only reason, but it's a big, big factor. And we all have been carrying a heavy load and paying a big price for that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge those residents here because you shouldn't have had to live by an abandoned large school like that. And I want to thank Pro Tem Carrington for his years before City Council and now on City Council working to try and get that cleaned up because that is rough, that is expensive, that is a nuisance that no resident should have to deal with. And we know that residents near Mark Twain have had to deal with that over and over again. Councilwoman James.
Yes, I just want to say that I stand with Councilman Carrington. I do believe this is essentially a good project, but it doesn't appear to be a good fit for this community. And so I will support him in that no vote. But I also want to say that something was said last week that we do not listen to the citizens. And I want to say that not only do we listen, but it's our honor to listen. It's our honor that you are here tonight, that you have been able to express your opinions well, and you have been listened to. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilman Goodman.
So there's a lot that I have to discuss in all of this. The first thing I want to say is that the community has a very clear lack of trust in council and the administration, and it's not unfounded. There have been multiple situations where I would argue that we collectively, both as this body and as a community, have been, in some cases, lied to, led astray, run amok. And it makes it extremely difficult for us to do anything having faith in what's happening. We have to actually start completing the things that we're telling residents that we're going to do. Because if we don't have anything to actually show them, they have no reason to have any faith in what we're saying or what we're doing. None. Like personally, I believe that there are better locations for this. A property that I've been trying to get taken care of and developed for a while now is the Racer Trust property on Baldwin that is sitting right across from what used to be Pontiac Motors. That seems like a much more reasonable place for this. I believe that more than anything, the city and the applicant need to be held accountable for whatever happens. And more importantly, this should be happening every time. The city and the applicants should be held accountable to everything that we're doing and that we're agreeing to in public. Because again, it's extremely difficult for us to ask anyone, including our colleagues and the residents, to support any projects when we cannot show them that they can believe in us in good faith. The very key thing that I want to mention is that personally, because it's been mentioned, like the idea of gentrification and bringing things to the city, I would say arguably more than anyone up here, I am the most vocal against gentrification, sometimes to the ire of my own colleagues. And it's because I want the city to continue to be for the people who live in the city of Pontiac, for our families, our homes, our jobs. I want a city that's actually full service for us, not for people who pass through, people who decide to move here. Be it, I will always accept new people to come love this city, but everything that we need to do should be for the city and for its residents. And I'm coming at this particularly from a place of being the youngest member of council, who literally has to be the voice for my generation of people who exist in the city, who want to live here, who want to have their families be here, because we have conditions where a lot of my people in my age bracket don't feel like that the city will be their home long term. I've had people who have lived here who have died because of the conditions that people are living in. And poverty is a very, very strong motivator for a lot of good and bad things. And realistically, we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we make this city truly be what it needs to be for our people. And I mean that in a very direct, straightforward way, as in the people who love this city sometimes more than they really should. But we need to have plans that come to actuality. We need to actually start having showable things for the people to believe in us and to have any faith. If they don't get the return on their investment, they have no reason to believe in us. And any faith that is currently had in this project amongst at least me or some of my colleagues, I could argue is probably on very borrowed faith and heavy skepticism after multiple things that have happened in the past year. Currently, I am still undecided on this vote because there are a lot of compounding issues that make this so problematic, but also something that it could actually be useful for our residents. And again, not for people who want to move here, but for people who actually live here, people residents in my district who are literally making crumbs to live, who do not have money, who do not have real long-term jobs. So regardless of how this goes, the administration and us as council need to make sure that things get followed through on and that they actually benefit the residents. Because if we don't do that, they do deserve better. And that's as simple as that.
Thank you. To continue deliberations, Clerk Doyle, do we still need a move in a second? Yes. Okay. For this adoption of an ordinance to amend, is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded, so we can continue debating, and ultimately that would prompt the vote. Further discussion on the motion before us? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac. This would be for the 729 Linda Vista, former Mark Twain School, for changing to a, if you could, Planning Manager Yandrick, have up again what the applicant is asking for the new zoning, so that way everyone has it before us. If it lets you. But if you want to just verbally share for the community, what is the corridor commercial designation that's we'll be voting on?
All right, thank you. So this rezoning request is a conditional rezoning request from R1, which is one family dwelling, to C3 corridor commercial for the 9.6 acres at 729 Linda Vista.
Okay. That's the motion before us, the conditional rezoning request. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call on adoption of the motion. Clerk Doyle.
James,
No.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
No.
Goodman.
Yes.
4 yeas, 3 nays.
All right, with that, the motion passes. The zoning has been changed conditionally for that parcel from R1 to C3 corridor commercial. We move now to the next item, number 4. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. This is the resolution to approve the first reading of an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac, amending Article 2, Section 2.103 zoning map. This is the first reading. We'll give a moment, but then Mayor and Planning Manager Yandrick.
Well, thank you, President McGinnis. You want me to pause for a moment?
Yes.
At some point, when people start making threats, is y'all gonna do something about it?
We need to have.
Because this is getting out of hand. Like, it's been 3 threats tonight, and no one is saying anything. And I take threats seriously because I've been physically attacked twice. I take threats seriously, and I need this administration to start taking this stuff seriously. It's one thing to have a disagreement. It's another thing to openly say you're going to do something to an elected official.
I honestly didn't hear any threats, but I believe you. I'm just saying I did not hear them until you brought them to my attention.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Rutherford, for the point of information. Mayor Grimo, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an item that was discussed earlier in terms of the updates to the zoning map. So as was discussed earlier as well, these proposed updates to the zoning map simply reflect zoning changes that were approved by City Council over the past roughly 10 years. But for reasons that aren't clear, were never adopted as amendments to the zoning map. And it's a big problem, as you can imagine, because it's very difficult for people to know what the zoning is on a given piece of property if the map doesn't reflect the updated zoning. We discovered this problem last year after we took office, and we've been working diligently, and I say we, but the credit really belongs to Manager Yandrick and his team, who have been working diligently since last year to identify all of the rezoning that was approved but then not updated in the map. And tonight is a proposal to actually update the map to bring it into accordance with the zoning changes that had previously been made. I do want to clarify, since a member of the public spoke to this, that this is not a change in the master plan. A member of the public seemed to suggest that it was.
You got to stop that.
And this is not a change to the master plan, but is rather a update to the zoning map. The master plan process has gotten underway. That too hasn't been updated in many, many years, I think 9 or more years. But this is not the master plan process. That started, that is going to take at least 9 months, maybe longer, because it's been so long since the master plan was updated. And so this is a different issue from the master plan, which those updates, or that process anyway, has started, but that's going to take nearly a year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Manager Yandrick.
All right, thank you. So this is a zoning text and map, or is this zoning map amendment? This is an exactly same process to rezoning, even though there's not rezonings here. The adoption of a zoning map is an option that city councils have. They usually, if you're doing a transformative rezoning, you would adopt a new zoning map. But this is just to establish, because the map has not been updated in almost 10 years, to establish a new zoning map. So Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 11th. Tonight is the first reading, and the future reading is planned for next Thursday on November 2nd, even though it says future up there. So cities are required to maintain zoning maps. That's in the state of Michigan. That is also nationwide under guidelines when there are when a zoning ordinance is in place. The city has not updated its zoning map since 2014, largely due to record keeping, contracting staff, technology issues, and maybe just unknown reasons. Current staff has reviewed zoning map amendments from 2013 to 2022, and I want to acknowledge all the rezonings that have been approved this year were already incorporated in, but really we're focusing on these timeframes to announce these rezonings for this map. The process established a new map and zoning districts on the map. And the intention of this is not to rezone any properties, but adequately reflect the rezonings in the community during this time. So I did want to highlight some of the changes that you would see on here. I mentioned this earlier. The marijuana overlay districts for both medical and adult. There are historic districts. And also we have conditional rezonings that are shaded on here. And we have changed a couple colors to better align with land use and making it easier to read. The R3 through R5, R3, R4, and R5, multifamily and trailer park, we've actually turned to a shade of green. And then C4, suburban business, we've modified the color to make it a little closer to C3. There is a list of 26 rezonings. This is in your packet. These are the rezonings that staff found that were approved and are valid today. And so I'm not going to go through each of these lists, but I want to acknowledge that items 24, 25, and 26 have been actually found since the Planning Commission meeting based on conversations and feedback we've heard from the public, and just digging and finding additional information. Conditional rezonings. If a conditional rezoning did not begin construction in 2 years, the rezoning was nullified and the property returned to the previous zoning district per the State of Michigan Zoning Enabling Act rules. Conditional rezonings that return back are not reflected on this map. And conditional rezonings from the last 2 years and those that are completed show that the brown hatching that's on the map. This, again, is a public process to verify the zoning district. Please reach out to the Planning Division if you have questions about the zoning district for your property. The telephone number is 248-758-2824. And there must be proof of an approved rezoning by City Council or the property had a different rezoning on the 2014 official zoning map. We will be happy to do research where we can and find what we can, but I think we need that information really from minutes, from resolutions, and we can work with the clerk's office and other documentation areas to get that information. Staff requested a condition to Planning Commission that city staff may update the cartography and any correction of a zoning district with proof of that proper rezoning. And those 3 items that were listed fell under that, just to allow us to make sure that we were updating this map reflectively. This was asked earlier, but I just want to reiterate, going forward, staff will update the zoning map with the adoption of any zoning map amendments. We will be doing this in the city's GIS program, Geographic Information Systems, which is the software we would do to accomplish this. It would be reflected in the PDF on the city's website, and it would also be on the online web map. This will occur 10 days after City Council approval as prescribed by our ordinance. And staff will work with our GIS technician to make enhancements to the web map, including adding a link to development regulations for each zoning district in a pop-up window. So if you own a property that's C1, you hit the pop-up window, you would actually be able to pop up all the regulations from our zoning code. We want to make this an easy place for people to get information, and this is how this would be done. Planning Commission's approval to City Council was 6-0 of the zoning map amendment with the one condition as supplied. So I'd be happy to take I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
So first, the former mayor alleged that this was just a map. Is there anything statutorily or state law-wise that's requiring it to go through a zoning map amendment? So that way we're basically codifying it in one fell swoop. I know the answer, but I would like you to offer to the community the answer.
Okay. And I would like to yield this to Morgan McAtamey from the Kelly firm.
Yes. So the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires us to adopt both zoning text amendments and zoning map amendments separately. This is a zoning map amendment. It is adopted the same way as a zoning text amendment. So when we do all of our zoning ordinance amendments, those are text amendments. So just the same way that you adopt those amendments, you adopt this map amendment.
Okay. And so essentially, even though it is housekeeping, it requires a formal adoption of the housekeeping so that way residents, current property owners, future property owners have a clear and easily accessible way to verify the status of their property.
Exactly right. There's a reason that we have the initial public hearing at Planning Commission, and then we come before you as council to make sure that these changes don't take the residents unawares. So that's why we're doing it this way tonight.
Thank you. Again, this is the first reading. It'll come back before us for a second reading. The plan is for next Thursday, November 2nd. Any further discussion, though, on the resolution that says it's been read for a first time? Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution acknowledging the first reading has passed. It'll be back before us next week. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the first reading of the zoning text amendment to amend Article 2, Chapter 2, Section 2.204, Table 2, to add the residential infill overlay district, Article 3, Chapter 12, Sections 3.1201 through 3.1205, to add Chapter 12 regarding the residential infill overlay district, Article 7, Chapter 2, Section 7.201, to add definitions regarding two-family dwellings and smaller one-family dwellings, and map amendment to display residential infill overlay district. Is there such a motion? Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Nicholson, seconded by Councilman Parker. It's now before us. We give the floor to the planning manager to give us the context.
Good evening. So this is a zoning text and map amendment. It is citywide, although is really to establish 3 overlay districts and the regulations for this new overlay district. It is city initiated, and it is for something called a residential infill overlay district. So this is the process that these regulations, this case is taken. We took it to informational session in September, and then the council members for District 1 and District 7 asked me to come to the district meetings to explain this to the residents of their districts. And so I presented to them, asked questions, gave them some more information. There was a public hearing held on October 11th at Planning Commission. There was some healthy debate. There were a few residents that spoke for and against some of the items in the proposal. Tonight's the first reading, and it will require, like anything, 2 readings. So let me provide some background. Under the 2014 master plan, one of the future land use goals is to improve existing neighborhoods. A city is comprised and defined by its neighborhoods. Strengthening the existing neighborhoods through blight removal, demolition, reinvestment, and business support will improve the image of the city and, more importantly, the quality of life of all Pontiac residents. Furthermore, in this subsection of residential development, it states the existing zoning ordinance should be amended to provide greater flexibility for building type and land uses within these districts. These standards should emphasize building form and outline acceptable materials and standards for each district. So the city has been approached by a developer who has an option to purchase and build on county-owned properties in 2 of these 3 proposed districts. The city has reviewed the concept and is proposing 3 areas for an optional overlay district. Optional meaning a property owner is not required to follow these standards. It is an option if a property owner or a developer of a property wants to utilize them. A property owner of a one-family zoning district parcel can do any one of the following of the buildable on a buildable parcel. 1 is to build a smaller single-family dwelling unit with higher architectural standards. 2, to build a 2-family dwelling unit with higher architectural standards. 3, Planning Commission considered the ability to construct an accessory dwelling unit known as granny flats or mother-in-law suites on their property. We had rules and regulations with this. Planning Commission wanted to separate this out and review this further. So tonight's ordinance does not include anything about accessory dwelling units, and we will report to City Council what Planning Commission decides. They're likely to next discuss this at the December meeting. So let's talk about the 3 areas of the city within this overlay district. Number 1, this is Pontiac City Hall. This is the area between Auburn, MLK, University, and Woodward that is the R1 zoning district here. So some of the areas along Pike, a little closer to City Hall, have different zoning districts. But this area in yellow is the first district. Area 2 is the neighborhood just to the west of the M1 concourse between Franklin Street and Bagley Street, between South Boulevard and Rapid to the north. And then the third area is what's kind of, I don't know the neighborhood name, but it's south of Unity Park. And really it's the railroad or the former railroad is the boundary to the north. And it is anywhere between Woodward and MLK, South Boulevard, all the way up to Elm Street is the farthest street north. So part of it is, why did we choose these 3 neighborhoods? So number 1, the proximity to downtown and/or Woodward Avenue, which are definitely hubs and corridors of the city. They're not the only hubs, but they definitely have some commercial activity. But these 3 neighborhoods have a cluster of vacant lots, many owned by the city and county. There are some in private ownership, but there are many owned by these 2 entities. Now, staff did some research. These neighborhoods were both 10 to 30% below the Pontiac average for household income and 10 to 30% below the Pontiac average for residential property value. So this is not comparing to Oakland County. This is not comparing to the state or national. This is with the rest of Pontiac, and we think this is important. I'm not going to go through every list of this sheet, but this is just some of the data we found for the number of vacant homes. There in Area 1, there are 145 vacant properties. It's just a grass field, and it is buildable. Proposed Area 2, west of M1, 97 vacant properties. And proposed Area 3, approximately 140 that are there. And this was some of the household income that we got from the census. So I'm going to start getting into regulations here. We did define some things that are new concepts to the city. Number 1 is a building step back. An architectural design element typically applied to upper story of a development. Typically, a step back requires that any portion of a building above the ground floor is further recessed from the ground floor facade. This is not, again, a requirement, but it's an option for a building step back, which is an architectural enhancement. Modulation is an inset or projection of sections of a structure's facade with specified intervals of building width and depth as a means of breaking up a structure's apparent bulk. We're adding these terms in here because we're trying to quantify what architectural standards we want within the city while still providing flexibility to a property owner or developer. Now, both for single-family and smaller 2-family complexes, the current minimum is 1,200 square feet in an R1 district. This proposal would allow, if you follow these architectural standards, would allow 700 square feet. These are not tiny homes by definition. Those are typically between 300 and 700 square feet. These are definitely smaller. We like to call them cute cottages, even though that's not an official name, but we're just referring to these as smaller footprints. Now, the requirement is that these 2-family dwellings may be side by side, front to back, or one unit stacked on top of each other. For interior lots, the primary building entrance shall be located on the front facade parallel to the street. Having that front door to the street definitely improves the sense of neighborhood and approachability for the different properties that are there. Also, for corner lots, the primary entrance shall face the street for which the structure derives its street address. However, two-family dwellings may or shall have a separate primary entrance per dwelling unit per street. There are some architectural requirements that there are 4 items up here: a projecting recess entrance, a stoop or enclosed or covered porch, transom or side light window panels framing the door opening. Transom is the light that would be above a door, like the windows above a door, on the sides of a door. These are options. You only have to choose one of them to really design within this smaller building. Two-family dwelling units, again, I just want to reiterate, would be allowed on individual lots that typically would not be permitted in an R1 district. So furthermore, there needs to be some reflection of traditional character of single-family dwelling units. It is important that these houses have facade modulation, entry features that are dominant elements facing the street, a utilization of a variety of high-quality materials that are either new to the neighborhood or complement the surrounding neighborhood. There are some streets that have a lot of vinyl. We are not prohibiting vinyl. I will talk about that in a second, but we want to introduce various building materials that have a little bit more durability for it, that are an investment for that property owner and the neighborhood long-term. Lastly, other than the 3 required design elements, applicants shall choose 2 of the 4 design elements, such as architectural articulation and walls and roofs, a covered entry porch again, a second-story step-back or modulation, or a larger area windows, such as architectural features compared to other structures in the neighborhood on the front and side facades of the principal structure. Now, when it comes to vinyl, staff had proposed to Planning Commission a higher grade than what is typically required at 0.466 millimeters. Planning Commission actually made a condition to increase that to 0.5 that has a higher quality and a longer durability to it. So I've talked a lot about some of these architectural standards. This is a rendering that has been provided to the city by a potential developer to build. And this, the garage is underneath. The garage does not count towards the floor area size. It is only what's on the second floor in this rendering. But as you can tell in here, there is a different roof pitch, but there is also an increase in windows that, and this would be facing the street, that really provide some architectural features that a traditional home would not have. I do have ADUs on here. We won't discuss that. But what I do want to share, though, is that deed restrictions would be required with ADUs. The potential developer also provided these images. There's one additional image that's in your staff report. But if you look at this property right here, this is down in Hazel Park, and they worked with various properties down in that neighborhood. And this is I think it's approximately 800 or 900 square feet, but it's adjacent to smaller family residential homes. And looking at how it fits in, I wanted to show City Council and the public that how this would be integrated into these existing neighborhoods. So just as a summary, these city-initiated zoning text amendments are for a residential infill overlay district, really constitute a neighborhood strategy. In staff's assessment, this strategy is focused on the needs of these neighborhoods, as other areas of the city may need different strategies in the future. The needs of this neighborhood are a bunch of vacant properties, a bunch of underpopulation, and also, property values and income values that are a little lower than the rest of Pontiac. This ordinance is being designed for anyone to build, not specifically for one developer. And we've already had a second developer approach the city with some interest. There will be some contrasting architectural styles with these proposed ordinance, but the long-term goals of the strategy are to, number one, create placemaking with enhanced architectural requirements, especially if you get similar homes in a neighborhood, even though they may not be adjacent to each other. Number two, it attempts to stabilize and or elevate existing neighborhood property values from dropping caused by blight. So Planning Commission's recommendation to City Council was approval 5-1 of the zoning text and map amendment for residential infill overlay district with 2 conditions. Number 1, the proposed vinyl thickness shall be a minimum of 0.5 millimeters from the 0.466 requirements staff proposed. And number 2, that no more than 70% of the exterior facade may utilize vinyl. So it really would encourage alternate materials that an applicant could use. So, and as I mentioned at the beginning, while staff introduced a proposal to allow accessory dwelling units within these 3 overlay districts, Planning Commission voted 6-0 to separate it from the proposed ordinance and tabled it for further discussion. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Councilwoman Rutherford, followed by Pro Tem.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for coming to my meeting, not once but twice, and doing this presentation. My simple ask is that you contact the CDC leader, Mr. Robert Bass. His meeting is on November the 4th, so that you can give the community input on this before we bring it back. It's just very important that they have a say in it. But my question is this. With these particular projects, are we reaching out to our local contractors to see if they can be a part of the conversation? Is there something that because in Detroit, they put special conditions, I learned this today from Councilwoman Sheffield, that when developers come to their city, they have to do certain things that hire a certain amount of people who have businesses here. So I asked her, could we use that in Pontiac, she said you should ask the developer. So is that in any of the agreements? And if not, can it be so that people cannot say that they don't have a seat at the table? I yield to you.
So this is not, these are city regulations. This is not a city program. This ordinance cannot, as a zoning ordinance, cannot prescribe a specific developer or where they live. I can definitely continue the conversation with our economic development manager, Deborah Younger, to see if something can be created. But really the effect of this ordinance is any private property owner can contract with any developer or builder to be able to build this on the market. So this is a little different than the home repair program.
And so my follow-up is because there's always a complaint in the community that they don't have an opportunity to be able to do this.
Yep.
And so that's why I'm openly asking the administration as well as you guys who are part of it, because then we could take away the vacuum that says you're not reaching out to organizations and you're not using our people who have skills, you're not using contractors, because that eliminates people to have anything to say. So to the administration, I need y'all to pay attention to what I'm saying. I need that to start happening in some of these deals, okay? That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if I could, real quickly, just to respond, I sent an email from your request to Mr. Bass earlier this afternoon. If his meeting is on November 4th, my request is that maybe the second reading for this be in 2 weeks, so we get a time, I get an opportunity to address the CDC on this before it comes back to City Council.
Thank you. Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President. I just want to iterate that this is not for any particular developer. This is anybody that owns vacant land in the city of Pontiac can actually work to build a home on their particular site.
That is correct.
With these new guidelines.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman James.
Yeah, my concern is in regards to rental. This is one of the objectives of this council, that we want to reduce the number of rentals in the city, increase the number of home ownership. Where is this going to fall? Because developers, are these developers coming in to build these homes so that they can sell them or rent them? And will this, this plan include that we're looking at people who are coming to own this property and not rent it? Because we don't want, I don't want this adding to our rental population.
Yeah. I think from the city, so to answer your question directly, one of the developers is looking to rent, one is looking to sell. The one that's looking to rent is open to considering selling. From the city's perspective, we see this as a way of getting attainable housing. Really something that it's a smaller footprint, and even though there's a little bit of higher architectural standards, is allowing people to come to this community and live, whether it's with rent or with property ownership. But I do respect your comment for your vision.
I'm sorry. I think it's a good, it's got some good bones, but we don't want to increase rental because generally they're going to be overpriced. they're going to be set up, for this outside developer to be able to, to profit from it, which is okay, but we already have too much rental in this city. And we really want programs that will begin to weigh toward the other side, home ownership. So I don't really, unless there's something that specifies that these developers are trying to build something that they can then put up for sale and make it available for people to purchase, I don't really support it.
Councilman Rutherford.
Okay, so I like to use reality. There's a housing shortage in Pontiac. Whether you're a renter or a homeowner, that's not made up, that's not delusional, it's facts. The average person cannot afford a home for different factors. They might have too many children, they might not make enough money, they might not have the credit score, because the average score to get qualified for any program, even the programs that's giving you a first down payment, you have to have a 620 or better. I know this because I'm in the process of home ownership. I am not against rentals because I know a lot of people who are working poor. Working poor means you're working, but you do not have the financial stability to buy a house. So we have to be very careful when we telling people who cannot afford home ownership that we don't want more rental properties, because what is that saying? Where are they going to go? If they can't buy a house, where are they going to go? They can't go to Oak Park because they have a limited amount of rental stock. They can't go to Waterford because it's overpriced. The outside areas, the average 2-bedroom in the city of Pontiac for rent is equivalent to paying a mortgage. So at some point, we can say these things, but until these people are ready, we cannot tell people because they renters, they can't stay here. That's not right. This is not right. And so my question is there a way for us to do both sides? Turn it from not affordable housing, but preferred housing, which basically means you start them off in a program like the FSS, which is the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, that allows them to actually end up being into home ownership, like how Flagster has the program, or how Housing Commission, or even the county has. Is there a way for that to happen? Because if not, these very homes that you're saying are going to be made for people to be bought, they won't be able to afford it, and they'll still be homeless and still be working poor. So that's my question.
I'd be happy to research and talk with the Kelly firm after this meeting and see, before we come to second reading, to answer that question.
Thank you as well. You mentioned, Councilman Rutherford mentioned that you came multiple times to interact with District 1 residents since 1 and adjoining 1.5, if you will, of these different proposed areas fall in District 1. And then 2 of them are within District 7. Thank you for coming to District 7's monthly meeting. There was a lot of interest and enthusiasm about the possibility. We recognize that we actually have a lot of growth that's happened in East Side neighborhoods where there's been new construction. Some of them have been leased to own properties like on Judson or in that Unity Park area, Whittemore. We need the vacant land that's pockmarking our neighborhoods on the East Side to have new construction eventually. Otherwise, just over the years, decades, it'll just be more and more vacant land. We need to cycle in and infuse additional quality housing options. I think it's really dynamic that we have, what's the square feet range that would be looking at for a single property?
So this would be between 700 square feet and 1,200 square feet.
Okay. For context, on Going Street, there's a house in the 600 square feet area, and on Mariva Street in the 600 square foot area, maybe 633 square feet. Those both clocked in as a sale, and I can't speak to their condition and what TLC it might need, but those sales happened at $43,000 and $45,000 respectively. And that's a lot more accessible of a price point for a home purchase, no matter how it's used, be it somebody that wants an investment property, hopefully somebody that's got a starter home or wants to upgrade their property. Those different sizes mean that different families and of different means can have an access into the housing market. And I think that's really good because it's stimulating redevelopment in our neighborhoods. It's not dramatically changing the character of the neighborhoods. It's taking the place of property that was lost, that was probably that size, could be larger, but with something that's quality. It's adding standards of design to say it's not going to be a tin box, it's not going to be, cardboard. It's going to be of certain materials and a certain appearance because we need to have a standard and a threshold to quality so it lasts. But I will continue to research about properties of existing parcels, the existing vacant land, because it seems though when it's been able to feed in, in terms of replacing homes that have come and gone, they were either demolished or lost to decay or to fire, that we want to see additional homes brought back into the fold, more options. The final district that's mainly in District 7 you mentioned that didn't have a name, a large part of it's called Ferry Farms. It's on Ferry Street, Irwin, going in that area. That's, an informal name. It's not necessarily what everyone would call it per se. But technically, because there was a ferry seed farm, 150 years ago or so, that's where the name came from and the street name. But Habitat for Humanity has built a number of housing options, and it's been to the stabilization of the neighborhood. It's been to the benefit to give more housing options. And so I'm interested to see this continue. Let's do more research. But I think these areas in District 7 are very effective choices because there's a pockmarked vacant land. There's a variety of different housing sizes. When you get to some of those blocks, there's already duplexes on Sanford or on some of those streets that parallel between Pike and Michigan or between Auburn and Michigan. So we already have some of that mix, and I want to see us continue to update and refresh our housing stock so that way Pontiac families of long-term and new-term of all means that they have access into the housing market, be they rent, be they lease, be they own, lease to own. I want to see more options on the table because we are in a vicious cycle that when there are many, many renters and not enough places, the rents keep shooting up, people keep getting priced out, and it means that people that are trying to buy their first home or buy their forever home, there's not even anything available to them. They've been priced out. So it's a compounding problem that's hurting both groups in terms of those that want to rent or need to rent or that's where they're at right now, but also those that want to own or need to own. So there's a lot of different priorities that we need to mix, and I'm grateful that District 7 can continue to be an innovator in this because a lot of our neighborhoods have benefited from other innovations with other programs that either the federal government, the state, or different, philanthropic groups like Habitat for Humanity have tried to pioneer. Councilwoman James.
Yes. Could you tell me just briefly where we are with respect to the housing study?
So the housing studies that whole RFP process is being managed by Deborah Younger, and I will defer that question to her, and I think she'll be speaking later this evening. I'm involved in the master plan process, and I've just gotten back a draft. We're going through due diligence right now with the county and with MEDC, but we're hoping to start that our RFP process in a few weeks. So,
okay.
Other discussion on this first reading? And Clerk Doyle, are we okay procedurally for the second reading if we want to, target for the 2 meetings from now? Does that work, or is there something already been published and we can bring it for a second reading, but we may review and then postpone for a week?
No, I just need to know the date. So we're not talking about the second. Are we talking about the 7th or
7th.
the 14th?
November 7th would be good.
So, because you said the meeting was on the 4th, though, right? So you'll have enough time for the 7th, or should it be the 14th?
My understanding, just in talking to Councilwoman Rutherford, is just sharing at the CDC meeting and being able to answer questions and share the proposal with them. I think if there's anything that needs to be evaluated beyond that, I think we can work with City Council on the meeting on the 7th. So,
But the packet will go out on the 3rd prior
absolutely.
to the...
Again, but the packet's ready. We have our information materials with the resolutions and ordinances as it is. So,
All right, so that's fine.
Yep.
So the 7th is fine. Yeah. And then I'm sorry, Mr. Rudd, and then for the zoning map we're fine for next week.
That is correct.
The 2nd.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Further discussion on the motion before us, which is the resolution acknowledging the first reading. Councilman Rutherford?
So just because this tickle my fancy, would you have a problem waiting till the 14th? That way people can actually have a discussion and I don't have to hear that it's already done?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I was talking to you. What did you say, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can you just wait till the 14th? I don't talk to other people. Did you hear you want to wait till the 14th? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call and adoption of the motion. It's the resolution for the first reading. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
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 Yes. That motion carries. The resolution is adopted, has been read for a first time, and we anticipate the second reading will be November 14th. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution urging the support for drive safe, safety, access, freedom,
So
and the
moved.
economy state legislation? Is that a motion from Councilman Goodman
So moved.
and seconded by Councilman Rutherford?
Yes.
All right, the motion is now before us. We give the floor to Councilman Goodman, who authored the resolution, to explain the document.
So I think it's a pretty simple and straightforward thing to discuss, although not many people are paying attention. So what we have before us is a city council resolution to support the Drive Safe legislation in Lansing, which stands for safety, access, freedom, and the economy. This bill package in particular is meant to allow Michigan residents who are unable to show proof of U.S. citizenship or immigration status to obtain a Michigan driver's license and state identification cards, which was practice up until 2008. After 2008, the Attorney General at the time removed that provision, essentially making it to where immigrants and migrants, for whatever reason, who did not have all of their documentation were unable to obtain a driver's license, which inherently means that people are not driving safe, that our roads are more dangerous, that people who could have insurance are not able to, people who very much could pass the competency to be able to drive are forced to gamble with their lives and their freedoms and their family's freedom on a daily basis. The Michigan League for Public Policy estimates that over between 55,000 of the 110,000 people who are unable to prove their legal presence are of driving age and will likely apply for a driver's license if this legislation package were to pass. And many of these residents include people of many different backgrounds for multiple different reasons as to why they may or may not have their documentation, whether it be DACA recipients, that is like are often mentioned, or any undocumented immigrant, or legal immigrants awaiting verification documents due to bureaucratic administrative delays, citizens who are born abroad, foreign adoptees. Like, there are many different reasons for why people are simply just not able to get a license. And in a society and in a state where people have to drive to be able to do anything, to be able to go to work, provide for the families, obtain groceries, we are asking people to gamble with their lives and their freedom every single day just to be a part of society. The number of increased licenses that would come from this would provide a massive, would generate a decent amount of revenue for the state of Michigan, around $100 million through licensing and registration fees, gas taxes, sales taxes, and so on and so forth, which only serves to help the state. By increasing the number of licensed drivers, it's expected by science and by numbers to make our roads safer, by making sure that people who are qualified to drive are given the ability to, but also making sure that they have to follow the same rules as us. Because people who do not have licenses are still driving no matter what, but they are likely, they do not have coverage, they do not have insurance. Our system is very much just, it's not helping people who are on the road currently with licenses, and it's doing nothing other than just punishing people who, again, prior to 2008, had the ability to obtain a driver's license legally from the state of Michigan. There are 19 states in the country, including the District of Columbia, that have passed laws that are similar to Drive Safe, the most recent one being Minnesota. And so I very much encourage City Council, a city that has at least 20% of our residents being Hispanic, Latina, and Spanish-speaking, who would very much be affected by this legislation in the state, that we push and encourage our people in Lansing, both in the House and the Senate, to pass these bills, to follow through on a thing that is, I think, massively important, not only for just people across the state of Michigan, but like families who are right here in the city of Pontiac, who, for one reason or another, are gambling with their lives and their freedom every day to be able to drive the way that our society has mandated they do, to be able to keep up with the rest of us.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on the adoption of the resolution urging support for the Drive Safe state legislation. Clerk Doyle.
Parker? Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
6 yeas.
The motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt number 7, the resolution to adopt the contract with Site Industries LLC, doing business as SEM Sites, to renew the SEM Site software license used to operate Ottawa Park and Oak Hill cemeteries?
So moved.
Moved by Nicholson, seconded by Parker. Councilman Nicholson moves, Councilman Parker seconds. The motion is now before us. Mayor and Administration.
Thank you, President McGinnis. I'm going to allow our DPW department to speak to this, and I know we've got a representative from Covenant as well here. So I want to make sure they can both have an opportunity to present. I would ask City Council to postpone this for a week before adoption so that we can look into a legal question, but I want to make sure Covenant can speak tonight since she's been here for a couple hours. All right, take it away. And feel free to go first, Deputy Director, whichever order you both deem appropriate. I defer to you guys.
Hi, Melissa Musa Spearing. I'm the managers of Oak Hill and Ottawa Park Cemetery. So I seen it on your list today, so I figured I'd come on over and see if anybody had questions and anything. Because us two at Covenant, we've had to switch to SEM Sites. So prior, the software that everybody was using was TACF. TACF sold the company to SEM Sites, and ultimately, you guys need to sign the contract because it's your information that's going in the database. Once Covenant walks away after the end of our contract and everything, it's your information. So you're going to want to make sure that you guys have control over that.
Good evening, Council. So before you, in this resolution, like Melissa's saying, we're looking to renew that contract that for the software license agreement that they utilize for operations. There's a lot of modules in it that are available. It's pretty inclusive.
I could help break down if you guys have questions about exactly what this program offers, kind of thing, if there's questions.
Any questions on this first reading, essentially, since there's been a request to postpone for 1 week to allow for further legal review? Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes. So when is the end of the Covenant? Is the Covington contract?
Covenants?
Covenants,
We
okay.
just renewed that with you guys, so we have 5 years.
5 years? And you said you said they went out of business?
No, TACF
Oh,
went, the
okay.
program software. They sold the company to SEM Sites. SEM Sites is now taking over for TACF. They do everything in there. I mean, it's from locating graves, so we enter every burial order in there, because you have to have a burial order for every person that we lay to rest. In there, we can do quite a lot of things, from billing to locations to
So there's general ledger for the cemeteries, accounts payable, accounts receivable, sales, burial cremation module, marketing, mailing, work orders as well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty inclusive. This is formerly known as Site Serve, now SEM Sites. So it's a 2-year contract, $8,388 per year, billed quarterly, and split between the two would be $4,194 for Oak Hill and
The same for Ottawa Park.
Any further discussion before we postpone? Councilwoman James.
I just want to clarify, so the previous, we just renewed the contract, but we have always maintained the software charges separate from your contract, Melissa?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's because ultimately the information is your guys's.
It belongs to us.
Correct.
Right.
When the day comes that we separate, this is your information.
Okay.
And currently, there's not a means to export that information. We are looking into that to expand our opportunities and consider other companies in the future, but currently, we do not have that ability to export.
To export it, do we have anybody that can use the software at the city?
It's what you guys use to operate.
Correct. I'm
both
currently
cemeteries.
using that, but here at your offices, I'm not sure that you guys currently use that software.
Okay.
Further discussion? Could I please have a motion to postpone for 1 week?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Nicholson, that we postpone for 1 week, so that way we could do some final legislative and legal review. Any further discussion on the motion to postpone? Roll call on the motion to postpone for 1 week. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington? Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 That motion carries. It will be back before us at next week's city council meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate application at 31 North Astor Street? It was moved by Councilman Rutherford. Is there a second?
Second?
It's moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilwoman James. The matter is now before us. We held a public hearing about this earlier. We also had a presentation on the proposal and the request when they were requesting, and it was voted on to establish the district for the Oprah. We give the floor to the mayor and deputy mayor if there's anything final that you'd like to reiterate.
Yeah, thank you. I touched on this earlier, but given the challenges with redevelopment here, we believe that an obsolete property rehabilitation act tax incentive makes sense to try to ensure that this project has an opportunity to actually move forward and succeed. I'll allow our economic development manager, Deborah Younger, to get into more of the details.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As discussed previously during the public hearing, this is the return, hopefully, of a obsolete property that's sat vacant since the early 2000s. The property is approximately 48,000 square feet. The proposal is to rehabilitate part of the school and, in fact, for community space, commercial space, nonprofit space, and then the remainder of the site would be for 180 plus loft-style residential units. The project is proposed at $31 million, and in fact would be done in several phases. The first phase would be the actual existing school building, which would be renovated into commercial space as well as some residential.
Thank you. Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to make sure that I got this right. When you guys talked about this before, he is going to be using local developers and using parts of the community that wants to be involved and engaged in this program, correct?
He's going to use his very best efforts to do that. He's indicated in writing that he will in fact work with Mr. Jones and his organization, and that's what he has stipulated, correct.
So in future, the follow-up is, in future agreements, is there a way for us to try to make people buy into using our local developers, contractors, and putting it into the agreement plan? The reason why I'm asking that is because
because I said it earlier, but you weren't here, so I want to reiterate. There's always a comment that we don't use our own, we don't take care of our own, and we don't give our own an opportunity to be at this table. And by you being the economic developer, and you've done this previously when you worked in other administrations, will that be something that you could see happening in the near future for the next other projects?
I can see that happening in the near future, but I also want to be clear with council that until we build out the total workforce development pipeline, I don't want to say blanket, it will be in every deal. I think we will use our best efforts. I'm working with organizations like TDC, and we just had a meeting today talking about building the workforce development pipeline and the trades and all of that. So yes, it is my intent at every possible venture to put those kind of stipulation in agreements, but I would be less than genuine if I told you that we're at a position where I can say that community development agreements will be the order for every deal in the city of Pontiac, but I'm working towards that goal.
I just wanted you to say it on the record, so could nobody make up nothing different. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the motion, of the resolution to approve the Oprah for the former Longfellow School at 31 North Astor Street. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Goodman?
No.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Rutherford? Yes. Carrington?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
Motion carries. The resolution is approved. We are at number 9. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution? Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. This is the resolution to approve an agreement with Quadrate Construction LLC to complete Phase 2 of the Ruth Peterson Senior Center project with a not-to-exceed amount of $193,904, and authorize the mayor or deputy mayor to execute the agreement. Mayor Grimley, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, President McGinnis. This is a proposed contract with Quadrate Construction to complete the second phase of renovations at the Ruth Peterson Senior Center. This is being funded by a grant from Lowe's, as in the hardware store chain. So we're very grateful to both our grants director, Alex Borngesser, and her team for securing this grant from Lowe's. And we're also obviously very grateful to Lowe's for their generous support of this project. And with that, I'd like to invite our purchasing manager, Alicia Martin, to the podium to talk in greater detail about the project.
Good evening, Council. This is for Phase 2 of the Senior Center Improvement Project. It's specifically for the flooring installation and the kitchen equipment upgrades. And I'm here to answer any questions that Council may have.
Thank you. We want to make certain that we were swift in hearing this matter because there's time sensitivity with the grant-funded need for us to expend the resources before we lose them. Is there any other context that you can offer on that?
Yes, I think about 85% spent by November 15th is what we're working up against. There is little wiggle room for going beyond that date, but the funder does want to see progress. They do want to see actual work being done at the center with those funds.
Councilwoman James.
Do you know when the contractor is scheduled to start, given that he gets this approval?
Tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Any further discussion? Pro Tem Carrington?
And what is the timeline in making sure these updates are done and finished?
Well, again, we're working with this aggressive timeline of November 15th, but I feel that it should be completed within the month of November. Director Borngesser has been working with the funder, communicating updates regarding the status of the project and ensuring that that won't be an issue, so funding won't be threatened to be, taken away. So we're looking to have them complete the work in the month of November.
And my follow-up question, will we need to close Ruth Peterson at any time, or can it continue to be open?
I don't know if they would, I would think that if they're working on the flooring, no one would be allowed in that area because that requires, for them to take all of that out. I know they've already removed the vending machines, and then there will be no one allowed in the kitchen as they're doing that, but I think it'll be done in phases. But I can get a more definitive answer from the contractor, because I'm not sure. They did provide a timeline in their proposal, which was a little more than a month's time to complete the project.
Deputy Mayor Stevens.
So I don't know that the Ruth Peterson Center will be closed during the entirety of that month, but I do know that plans are being made for times when the Ruth Peterson Center will not be available, or to be more specific, when the larger room will not be available, so that those activities can also take place at the Bowen Center.
Any further discussion on the motion before us? Making action happen for upgrades at the Ruth Peterson Senior Center funded by grants. Councilwoman Rutherford.
I'm just excited to see that this is being done, and I just want to thank you for your leadership and your hard work, and also to the grants department and to the administration, because we need to make sure we always take care of our own and take care of our seniors. So thank you so much for doing your work and surpassing what most people have not done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any final discussion? Hearing nothing further, speakers is exhausted. Roll call on adoption of the resolution to approve the agreement with the construction company to complete Phase 2 of the Ruth Peterson Senior Center project with a not-to-exceed amount of $193,904, and authorize the mayor or deputy mayor to execute the agreement. Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Did I vote? I'm a yes. Okay. I'm a yes. All right. Motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We now are at public comment. Who's the first request for public comment? Pro Tem.
Mr. Paul Wilson.
Hey, my closing comments, meaning no disrespect to the city clerk, Mr. Dorr, but I challenged this list, and I also challenged the process by which this was done. Out of the total number of names of 55 on the list, 16 of those names does not live in the city, so they were unable to be contacted. 3 of the names on the list does not even live in the state of Michigan, and they were not able to be contacted. One of the owners is a property owner itself, and 3 of the addresses on the list, the homes are boarded up. When I spoke with Mr. Dorr, he said only worry about the name that's in the city of Pontiac. I think we met our 20%, and it should have taken 5 votes to pass the amendment. Secondly, when you think in terms of the Planning Commission and what the Planning Commission was doing in your presentation, Mr. Carrington, you scheduled our meeting on October the 17th, which is the same date that the planning meeting was scheduled on for a public hearing to approve the process for the Mark Twain School. And last but not least, there are people within our city that has some kind of workforce development, and if we work with those within our city, as opposed to going down to the city of Detroit, to the city of Troy, and other areas, bringing those people in to work with them, we have enough intellect within the city of Pontiac such that we can work with workforce development. The last thing that I wanted to say, just as I said in my first presentation, regarding the master plan, as of August the 30th, the master plan had not even been started. I rode down to Troy with the mayor, and he and I talked about the master plan. And here you take a 9-year project and you turn it around within 30 to 40 days. Hard to believe. I still want to say that I plan on challenging this process and this list. I spoke with you about it. I listened to your comments. Now you've had an opportunity to listen to my comments concerning the list. I think we met the 20% protest.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Carl, I'm sorry. Mr. Maxey, Bill Maxey. Mr. Bill Maxey.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Pontiac. Bill Maxey, community activist, civil rights tonight. I wanted President McGinnis to be especially present tonight to hear this message. I'm only going to say this one time. It's not personal, not personal. It's feedback from the community and those of us. Please understand that the African American male dominance leadership in this city for the last 10, 15 years, we stand on the shoulders, we, the Johnsons, the Stewart, the Jones, the Maxes, we stand on the shoulders of qualified leadership. Point blank was asked to me questions about our council president. Why are we still on the back of the bus? And I had to explain to him that type of leadership comes from like Willie Lynch, 3/5 of a man, Anglo-Saxon, puritanical code. It's his belief. It's no excuse that you would not recognize predominant black male leadership, not discounting the women. And here 2 years later, you still haven't made effort. The only thing that we got, all of us voted for it. Understand who Mike McGinnis is. Understand who he is. Ask him what he has contributed to the city of Pontiac. And council, I'm going to use one word. Spoon-fed. Spoon-fed. You got to understand that everybody in this city elected officials to do what? Not to follow their leadership, but listen to their voices. Listen to their voices. And no, I'm not an angry black man. No, I'm just saying to you that at midnight when many of you are asleep and in the morning I'm out, if Mr. Johnson isn't with me, or Mr. Jones, we know what's happening in this city. You're not going to stop now. You're not going to stop. But take this with you. You have led leadership, not leadership. If Mr. Johnson cusses again, I'll cuss again. If he goes to jail, I go to jail. But you're not going to ignore a 50-year man that put all his efforts, energies, and truth into the city to help, all kind of ways. So be careful how you wordsmith. It all depends what it stands for. Out wordsmith me. You can't do it. Mr. McGinnis, that was my answer about your leadership and why you're putting us on the so-called back of the bus. No consequence, because we're not surviving. We have always maintained, and we will continue to maintain. Regardless of how you control that agenda, you will not control this city. And that's what I said to the people of Pontiac and District 7. I asked them, what has the president done for you lately?
I hesitate to
Why do you have the worst
showdown,
district?
but your time has well
Thank you very
expired.
much. Won't come back again, but know where you are. Lynch, puritanical code, that's exactly who you are.
Mr. Carlton Jones.
Let me say this. I had some things I was really going to say, but I gotta speak to this now. You guys stepped on the whole election process that we have in this city.
Amen.
This city has been built around districts, and I don't know how Mr. Carrington, Pro Tem Carrington, can go back to his district as he spoke that he did not want that. I've been here 2 weeks. Not one resident came here in favor for it. Not one. I didn't hear one resident come to this podium in favor. You guys must think you're at large. We're not structured that way here in Pontiac. It's disappointing. It's very disappointing that you would take liberty to vote against a councilman and people who came out and spoke. They're speaking, and you're going to vote that you think you know better than people in that district. That's the way we structure.
Amen.
We structure for people in the district to know best. So you're telling me something else is in the game. You ain't listening to the people. You got some other agenda going on. And I'm just going to keep it real, because, I'm going to tell you now, you don't have to like me. I hate to get it, because I had some good things I want to talk about, how we got the rental property under control. I really wanted to lift it up. But this right here really pissed me off. The 4 people who voted against that, you can't in your right conscience say that you listened to what was going on in here. I went over to the meeting. I listened. I came here last week. I ain't say nothing about it. I listened. So if you know something more than what the people came here and say, we need to know about that. That's not the way we structured in the city. We structure by districts and district representation. So it makes no difference for me to say what I want to say to my council person, because it don't make a difference. You're going to vote like you want to vote. So we don't really need to respect what you're doing, because now you're not showing respect for us. And Goodman, you got up there saying about how this trust and everything, you was right. And then you turned around and voted against what the people said. So what you gonna do? You can't have it both ways. My councilman was right at our meeting. We said we was against it, but she voted for it. So she doing what she want to do. And it's telling us the rest of you all are doing what you're not listening to what the people say. Now, I hate to be like this, but Mayor, this is the truth. It's the truth. And you guys think this going to go away? This ain't going to go away. I'm going to tell you, some of us have been around it for a while. You may say, okay, they're going to go away. It ain't going away. You blatantly went against the way this city is structured. Okay, I'm through with it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
I'll start from where I had to leave off at agenda address. And I see the 4-3 vote, you passed the Mark Twain initiative. And despite, you're trying to tell the community that it's a good project, they didn't believe you. They didn't believe you. So that speaks to a bigger issue that you have, really. And that bigger issue is that, and I think, Councilman Goodman, you hit the nail on the head when you said people are now skeptical of what they're told by this administration, because they've been given so much okey-doke, that now they're wondering what to believe and what not to believe. So that's the real crux of the issue, and that's something that's not going to go away with this vote. I'm going to speak also, address this particularly to Councilman Parker, James, and Carrington, who did vote against the initiative, because I think you'll understand and appreciate what I want to also say. Okay. This isn't the first time that people have been skeptical about the real motivations for an agenda. There's so many others, and it's beginning to build up, all right? Let me mention a few. The $19 million out of the $50 million that was supposed to benefit Pontiac's downtown. Well, $19 million got taken and given to somebody administration's buddies downtown. Okay. That's not going to be put in Pontiac's hands. That's given to the developers who didn't do right by us. Okay? And the reason you get tagged with that is because you sat here and were complicit and let that happen. You are drinking the Kool-Aid instead of getting the right answers that you need to get to protect the people. Another thing, I kept saying about the $10 million that got taken out of ARPA funds. You was going to take out another 10. That should have gone to home repair programs. How many people even have gotten the money for the home repair program? All right? How many more could get it? How many people are they trying to cut out of it because there's less money there? Okay, that's another one. Medical marijuana. Last week I brought up the fact that you added on a closed session item to the agenda. Council President, you didn't say what the issue was. Just because it's a written opinion does not mean it qualifies for closed session. And you said, okay, we're going to tell what it is when we do the resolution. You didn't do the resolution. And also, it says in the agenda here that part of the consent agenda is the closed session minutes. There are no closed session minutes, okay? So time and time again, and it's I don't know whether people take it. In fact, we can read, okay? People don't like to be played as if they're dumb and they don't know what's going on. And I think that's your problem right now. That's going on too long.
Thank you, Dr. Water. Mr. Chuck Johnson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those of you here in the audience and those of you at home watching by television. You know, I wasn't going to come down tonight. I was laid to TV, watched it. I had to come because I'm concerned about how things are happening at this table. I'm hopeful that people like Mr. Carlton Jones, Maxie, me, and others are around when the time comes for the people to do their voting again.
Amen.
Because I'm hopeful that some of these speakers that we heard here tonight and before will be some of those that may sit in some of those seats. Now, I'm not throwing a brick at any of you. I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying we need a better voice at that table and a stronger voice at that table. Now, the reason why I came up here is because we're talking about land use and how our director over here is putting things together for the best interest of the city. Why is it that we cannot take these rundown, dormant buildings that's owned by outsiders, tear them down, make way for more property that can be used for housing, make way for things that we're looking, the taxpayers are looking for here? You cannot continue allowing these rundown, dormant properties to continue in place. And Mike, you talked about the property we own, the city. We own. But yet you'll violate me if I had something bad on my property. Why isn't that building torn down? I remember when I was doing demolition in the city, it wasn't a question about when and where. It was a question of what day was we going to tear it down. And where the money was going to come from wasn't a problem. Where is the dollars that this city should be getting? This administration and others should be lobbying the federal government, the state, and the county, because a lot of this crap belongs to the county, and get these buildings torn down. They have to go so that the folk that come to this city, they're looking for places to build their businesses. Now they have a vacant piece of property they can start anew instead of bringing this junk to junk. It's time out for junk to junk. And you know, I'm not going to get into this because I don't want to step on your toes tonight, Mayor, but I'm coming with it sooner than later. I'm coming with it. But y'all need to understand that the taxpayers in this city do not want old junk to be refurbished into old junk again. We want new and used properties. Look at Auburn Hills. Every piece of property they got over there is brand new and available and ready for people who want to come in and build in their city. And here we are, Pontiac, in the 23rd century, we still doing the same damn thing we did 20 years ago.
That does conclude your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Beatrice Wright, and please forgive me for jumping over you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Clerk Doyle. I first want to shout out to two, I guess you're going to call them centenarians because they're about to be 100 years old. Miss Estelle Marshall, whose birthday happened on October 20th, she turned 99. And Mr. Major Kelly, whose birthday happened on October 10th, he turned 99. Now, both of them live independently in our city, and Mr. Kelly, well, Miss Estelle Marshall is my auntie. Mr. Kelly is my golf buddy, and he still is an active player. So I want to let them know that I think I can speak for everyone in here. We want to be just like you when we grow up. So, wanted to speak briefly on Mark Twain. You know, I had been here at the council meetings for all of it. I was at the Planning Commission when they presented to the Planning Commission. And I guess I was looking at them through rose-tinted glasses like the council was. But it took for me to go home, and I immediately called people in the district of Mark Twain. And the people I'd called said, well, they did give us we had a meeting, and I felt comfortable. And I said, well, that's your district, but, you know, there are going to be people that aren't going to like that. My own discernment took me to what they were paying. You know, they were so puffed up about, we're going to pay $15 an hour. Oh, well, $15 an hour will not take care of a household. And I know that you heard the same presentation I heard. I'm all for building Pontiac, but Pontiac is different than Auburn Hills. Auburn Hills wasn't nothing but dirt. Pontiac was a thriving little metropolis. And so as it relates to Mark Twain, we need to go back to the drawing board, and something has to be done that we can bring all of us on board. And I don't know what the bones of that building is. I do know that there has been some vandalism. I don't know what the bones are. So we need to revisit that. But another one of my of our residents told me, well, you know what? Just like the Native Americans used to say that Kemosabe speaks with a forked tongue, you know what that means. We need to make sure we understand what we're getting with the Mark Twain project. And finally, today was a wonderful day for golf. Those of us who love the game were out there, and I spoke specifically to non-residents who were abhorred with the idea that they want to sell our golf course. And you know what? On another day, Mr. Guinness, maybe you'll let me do a presentation just on the beauty of our golf course. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister Veronica Taylor.
First, I honor God, who's the head of my life. To all of y'all in here, I greet y'all with love and peace. I'm a lot sadness because Sam was a very good woman and helped this country a lot. And for her to get stabbed as many times as she did, representing, and they don't know how, and the FBI and all of them investigating. We got to stop hating on each other and start loving, because we are losing each other daily. Secondly, I would like to thank Carrington for the gas giveaway, for coming there saving us as we was giving out gas. He stood and made sure everyone in the Oakland County Sheriff and them didn't shut us down. And I would deeply like to thank you for that, because we gave out a lot of gas across for Pontiac people here in 3 different stations. And I thank you very much. And our Congresswoman told me to tell you all that she loves you all, but she's busy in Washington. And I'm asking y'all to continue to pray for them there in Washington to get a speaker. And think about how we treat one another. Because right now,
I'm very sad over losing a senator that was in the Senate that was walking for Secretary of State that got shot 2 months ago as he was going from door to door. So we got to be careful of what we're doing and what we're saying to one another and watch out how we're treating one another because we're dying by the dozen every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Darlene Clark.
Wow. I'm Darlene Clark. Let this be known I'm speaking as a resident. Also, let this be known that I am speaking to the public, but let this also be known that I'm speaking to the council to let you know and understand what the public is speaking. Your expectation of the public is far more than what you give in the expectations of the residents. What's happening here is that we have 7 council people and 1 mayor. We have a council meeting that's supposed to be governed and ruled with the mayor as a visitor to sit in to see what the residents want. We have 3 over 40, which I should say age-related, Mr. Parker, Ms. James, Mr. Carrington. These are the seniors that sit on the council meeting that's supposed to have a little, as you say, experience in order to help see the insight of what the people are saying. And then we have 4 young people. We have Mr. McGinley, as he say, I don't say his name right. We have Mr. Goodman, we have Mr. Nicholson, and we have Melody Rufford. Now, on the 3 people, what the people are saying, consider the elderly people, they don't say nothing. They sit there and let the 4 young people run the show. They agree with everything they're saying, even though they're wrong. They express their concern, but in the same token, they turn around and vote no. Never in the history that I live in Pontiac and been involved in legal and in government that have seen a council person all say yes, yes, yes. And only today, only 3 said no. But a rule of the 4 council people, the young ones, to protect the older people from getting the heat, said yes. Now, the mistake that the 4 young people made, your reputation is really not very good. Melody Rufford, you have a terrible reputation. Mr. Goodman, your reputation is not very good either. McGinley, I really know the Tea Party. Mr. Nicholson, I guarantee you, your bar has been downtown Pontiac since I was young. So what I'm saying to you people, you can sit and quote your Bibles and all that. You can quote your quote, Melody, your reputation, and even interfering and making yourself looking like you're the victim. Hey, girlfriend, I ain't mad at you because you got to toot your own horn. But what the mistake that you did, and I say this to all 7 of you, whether you've been here 2 years, 7 years, or 50 years, you mess with the wrong set of people in Pontiac. You mess with the people who helped build Pontiac. And without them, the South Side and East Side would not have even came together because there was a time we couldn't go in Indian Village. There was a time we couldn't even go into Washington Park, and guess why? Because I was there. There was a time you couldn't even socialize black, white, call it whatever you want. Now, if this is a new change in a new government, a new form of government, I guarantee you to the people out there saying this is the worst council, all 7 in the history. You made the past council look good. But you 3 adult people over here who do not stand up for what's really there on your minds and let 4 people, young people, who don't even pay enough taxes to wet their ears, I guarantee you just hurt yourself.
Your time has expired.
Ms. Miller.
Now, I'm going to start my time. And I know some say it's not personal, but it's personal to me because it's my residence. It's personal to me. It's personal to me, City of Pontiac. When I went out in the hall, when those 4 voted for this, some of them cried. Some of them were so sick, they didn't know how to act. They went home. That's what made Gloria fight. So let me tell you something. This is not the first vote, Mr. Maxey, that they did this to us. They did this to us with downtown Pontiac. Remember, the mayor was out there doing a bid and then he comes in and gives it to them at the last minute, and they vote on it. This is not the first thing. I have a lot of people out there walk up to me every day and say, I see the media. You've seen this happen before. Now this is enough. Anybody know me? I done did 3 or 4 recalls. It's time to show some action. We don't have to sit here with this 2-year shit. Excuse me. I got mad. We don't have to sit up here with this. Recall them. Recall every one of them. They telling us what to do. Mr. Goodman, you sit up there and you explained it so well, and you sit right there and voted for it. There were some people behind me was at me, say, oh, he's not going to vote for it. I said to myself, record speaks, he's going to vote for it. You're dead. Let me tell you all something. I know all you're going to talk your big talk when you get through at the end of the day, but we've been around. We've been around. These people in this community, it hurts me. It's not even my district. And then I'm going to say one more thing. I said this when I was on council. Did nothing come to my district if my resident didn't want it. No way would that council, the last council, would have voted for that issue if I had to put my foot down and told them not to vote for that. It's Mr. Carrington that you need to go at. He didn't not stand up for you. He made himself look good saying that he's not going to vote for it, but he knew the other 4 had his back. That's right. We're not stupid. We're not stupid. All of them need to go. Only thing that's kind of stopping me a little bit is cold, and I don't feel like walking in the cold, you know, Mr. Maxey. But we might have to walk in the cold because we're not going to take this disrespect. And Mayor, you don't get off of it either. You don't get off of it. You bring everything to him. You can tell, yes, master. I ain't never seen a council where the mayor got 7 minutes and the council got 3. It's called the council meeting, Mr. Clerk. And by the way, you said yes. Those documents, nobody looks online. We got people that sit at Pontiac, they seniors. They don't know anything about looking on no line. And when you come in this office, we used to have those sheets right in each chair. We got money, print them for us in here. Clerk, print them for us. Transparency, corruption to the core, from the mayor office all the way down to the end. Every last one of you. You do every damn thing you want to do to us. And I say for the people, and I done talked to the people in the district, recall all of you. Let's go.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Renee Beckley.
I'm one of those cool kind of mad. First of all, I want to go right to you, Tim Grimal, since you're the leader of the pack. I campaigned for you. At that time, I was having issues with my feet because of my work conditions. They cleared up. Glad I didn't walk the streets for you. And you can have all those campaign signs I got in the garage because you didn't pick them up from the schools. So I'll bring them down here. I'll never, ever vote for you again. You don't care. You trying to get a higher seat. You probably want to run for Congress or Senate or something. You using this as a stepping stone. I saw it tonight. You really showed who you are. You 4 council people, and I'm going to call your name, especially the one that blew up at me, Melanie Rutherford. I'll start with you to get you out of the way. Yeah, you need to get out of the way, girl, because you don't know what you're doing. Told Kermit and them not to support you because you don't know, don't care, you don't have no empathy, you don't have no sympathy. You're just a player. You get what you want, and you just don't care. As long as it's not near you, it's all right. Save for Brett's not even from here. He probably don't even know where Mark Twain is. Just going with the flow. Move to Auburn Hills and already on council. Michael, I gave you $50 through AppBlue because I didn't like Mary Peetler. Mary Peetler and me had some issues. Well, you just turned into Mary tonight. Really, you just like a male version of her. Mike, I always knew who you were. You're nice, but you're not nice. You're a good guy, but you're a bad guy. What day on, next day off. The night you was off. You could do better, Mike, but you just like the rest of them, I'm just going to be bad as bold as I want to. You don't care. We got to listen to that noise. We got to smell those smells. Or whatever else goes on in the plant. It blow up, it's going to blow up on us. Who in the world will put a plant in the middle of the neighborhood? Why would a plant want to go in the middle of the neighborhood? You got the GM sites. You got all these industrial parks. And you're going to vote that in. And I know, William, you slick. I know you. You want to be, I think somebody said the mayor at one time. But You know, you trying to do a stepping stone, you two together, brought the school board, look how the schools are. And now you over here starting some mess. I'm mad as hell. And y'all don't care. Y'all really don't care. You know, at least, you know, the rest of you four had some sense. I don't know if y'all all together, maybe, oh, the three just vote for and the four do, and it's going to go down anyway, and we protect William. We see that. We're not dumb. If y'all want to go to court, let's go to court. Let's drag it out. No, Paul, I'm with you. Okay? Ms. Dahl, I'm with you. Anybody else want to get in? We put our money together. Let's drag them out and knock them out. All y'all don't need to come back. All 7, and Tim, you don't need to come back either. That's why you probably couldn't get elected in Auburn Hills and Haley won, because they knew how you were.
That does.
How
conclude
dare
your
you
time.
do that? How dare you put
That
a plan
does
in my
conclude your
neighborhood?
time.
When we said we don't
That
want
does
it.
conclude your
You
time.
care about the plant more than the people.
Thank you. Ms. Erling Dow. No, ma'am.
You know, I had all faith in the city of Pontiac. I've been here since I was 7 years old. I'm 81 years old. I love Pontiac. I have worked hard for Pontiac, and people up there that I've worked for, they know it. I am so disillusioned that you don't care about Pontiac like I care about Pontiac. So disillusioned. I just brought my husband home from the hospital yesterday. I had someone to take care of him. I left here so I could go take care of him. And I got home and I said, I can't go home and stay and not come back here and let you know how I feel. I called someone to come over and watch my husband after I got him ready for bed. I am so disillusioned with the city of Pontiac. So disillusioned. And I should correct that. So disillusioned with the leaders of Pontiac. It hurts my heart. And Mr. McGinnis, you named all these schools that are bad. I want y'all to do something about it. You just told us about all the schools. So I know the city of Pontiac, our leaders, are going to do something about it now. Putting you on notice. I am so heartbroken. And why, after my council person voted no, that y'all have the audacity to vote for it. Now, Mr. Carrington, when their people go to do something, I want you to go and vote against it if you feel truly that it's not for the community. You in the past have worked for the community and worked hard, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I love Pontiac, and you know I've worked hard for Pontiac. I have walked the street. I have things printed up, have donated. And how can you in another community, in another district, come and say what I want? I didn't vote for you. So how can you do that? You're on notice, Mr. McGinnis, for those other schools. You named them. It's in the records. Now do something about the other eyesores.
Thank you, Ms. Dow. That concludes public comment.
My name is not on the list, but I would appreciate if I could say something.
It's your call, Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that my mom bought my house, her house, on Jocelyn Street in '63. When she passed, we kept it in the family. Now, I just wanted to say that because that house has been there that long, and I'm hoping that it can stay there. Another thing is that we can't go by hearsay. Now, the mayor said that people over in Ruth Peterson said that they approve this, that they wanted it. And the people that stood up when we were at a meeting at that place weren't even a residents. They're in District 1. They're in District 1. They weren't even in the nose. And I haven't seen one, not one, of them come over here and talk about the goodness of this plant. The goodness of this plant. And that's what I want you to know. You can't go by hearsay. You got to go by mouth. I go by the horse's mouth. If you want it, how come you're not here to say it? The people that are in the nose, that are in District 6, do not want it. If my mother was here, if anybody remember Annie Smith, if you remember Annie Smith, you would know she would be up at this podium and you would not pass this thing. Not with Annie Smith.
Order in the chambers.
Okay.
The resident has the floor.
I just want you to know that the people in District 6 is the one that votes.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. That concludes public comment.
Excuse me, Mr. President, we
All
just
right,
need her
that
name
concludes-
for the record. She didn't state her name.
The pro tem has her name.
Okay, I thought she said she.
He's got her down. All right, we are at discussions. The first is the Pontiac Pride and Beautification Awards reception. It's a reminder that it's this Wednesday, October 25th, from 4 to 7 p.m., held at Goldner Walsh Garden and Home, 559 Orchard Lake Road in Pontiac. For more information, you can contact the Pontiac City Council offices at 248-758-3022. All of this year's award recipients are welcome and encouraged to attend this year. Let us know if you have any questions, final questions. Any other discussion? Want to center that? All right, the next discussion. All existing unlicensed residential group homes and facilities have an impending application deadline. This is an important matter. The City Council voted to amend the ordinance in recent months, and there's a deadline that's coming up. This action was taken to make our neighborhoods and our corridors more in order, more clean, the code better enforced, and increase safety for residents in the facilities, the current and future facilities. So give the floor to the mayor and staff. Looks like they've got some information for the community teed up for this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. You summed it up well, but I want to invite our planning manager, Mark Yandrick, to get into some of the additional details.
Okay. So good evening. So there was a request for some frequently asked questions, really to let the public and community know about these regulations. We have had people come in and applying over the last week, and it's been a relatively easy process for them. Why did the city enact this legislation? The goal was to support and protect residents by creating an annual inspection program and to protect the neighborhoods so clusters of these facilities don't develop in one neighborhood. Unlicensed residential facilities and group homes have never been regulated by the city in the past. So we're starting from square one with knowing how many we have as part of this process. So what legislation did the city adopt? The city enacted legislation on June 20th of this year to define boarding or lodging houses, unlicensed residential facilities, and/or homes. These uses require a special exception permit in the R3 and the R4 zoning district. The buffer distance was also increased to 1,500 feet between state licensed residential facilities, unlicensed residential facilities, and boarding houses. So if I have an existing unlicensed residential facility or group home, can I keep it there? This ordinance allowed 120 days, which is through Monday, October 30th, for an existing facility to apply for a zoning compliance permit from the planning department to register the use as a legal nonconformity or being grandfathered. Additionally, the premises needed to be inspected by the building official will need to be inspected by the building official annually and would also be required to participate in the city's rental program. The next question, do state licensed residential facilities need to register for this? The answer is no. State licensed residential facilities were previously required to register through the city's zoning, building, and rental programs, and as long as they have a certificate of occupancy, they can continue. And so the last question is, what if an unlicensed residential facility or boarding house does not register? If the operators of either of these land uses do not apply by next Monday, October 30th, they will be cited and the facility or home cannot continue to operate unless the location receives zoning authorization. The use would need to be located in the R3 and R4 zoning districts, receive special exception approval, which is by Planning Commission, and be located 1,500 feet away from another facility. So the point in this is we are definitely encouraging, even if you think you have this use, if you're renting out rooms or if you've got something that operates like a state licensed residential facility, but it's not officially registered through the state, please come to the city and talk to us. We'd love to get you to register in this grace period. This almost is like an amnesty by next Monday. The planning office is open from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The deadline again is Monday, October 30th. And if there are any questions, again, the best number is to call the planning office at 248-758-2824. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Hearing no further discussion, thank you very much for those frequently asked questions. Our final discussion item, I want to make sure the community was aware that North Saginaw Street has a closure. The road is fully closed from Clark Street to Fairgrove due to DTE Energy doing an upgrade. That project construction is estimated to take about 4 weeks, and it started a few days ago. So I want to make sure that this council and the community was aware of that and wasn't surprised by that inconvenience. Any further discussion on that matter? Hearing no further discussion, we move to communications. In addition to the Pride Beautification Awards tomorrow, there's a trunk or treat and fun fest happening from 5:30 to 8 p.m. here in the City Hall parking lot. It's with the Sheriff Department, the school district, Deputies for Kids, the city itself, Project Excel, come out from 5:30 to 8 to the City Hall complex outdoors. The History Center has a Harvest Festival on Sunday the 28th from noon to 405 Cesar Chavez. You've heard about the scholarship essay competition, and the mayor may go in further on that. Emphasize again, next week's city council meeting is not on our usual Tuesday due to the Halloween conflict. Didn't want to be inconvenient for families and their plans. So it's Thursday, November 2nd, 6 p.m. That's the next city council meeting. You can find more items listed on the agenda, of course. And next week we'll have it updated, but we're trying to also make sure the agendas reference the different district meetings. District 4's meeting is scheduled for November 6th, correct, Councilwoman James?
Yes.
The next District 4 meeting is November 6th, and you've already seen some of the dates populate. We will work to any of the activities of the district. We want everyone to have an easy way to reference that. For time, I'll move now to the mayor's office for his communications.
Thank you, President McGinnis. In the interest of time, I just want to highlight 2 items that are at least somewhat time sensitive. One is that we're happy to say that Orchard Lake Road should be reopened to traffic soon, within the next few weeks, within the first half of November. We're appreciating everybody's patience with that road closure, but from Voorhees to Old Telegraph, but the good news is that we will have a newly repaved road when this process is over, including a newly rebuilt bridge over the Clinton River. It's that bridge work that really necessitated the road closure. And then also, I want to emphasize the Fran Anderson Making a Difference Scholarship. I really encourage people to spread the word and have students apply for this opportunity. In past years, it's an annual scholarship associated with the Holiday Extravaganza Parade. In past years, it was $1,000, but this year it is $5,000. So please spread the word. People can apply at the Holiday Extravaganza website. That's www.holidayextravaganza.org.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Stevens, anything? Clerk Doyle?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to remind all residents in the city of Pontiac, we will not have an election on November the 7th. We have been getting some calls as to why they have not received their absentee ballot. And again, to the public, there is no election on November 7th in the city of Pontiac. The second thing, with all due respect to Mr. Wilson, I have the utmost respect for Mr. Wilson. He serves on a commission that the clerk's office supports, but I just want to clarify to the public, I explained to Mr. Wilson the requirements of a protest petition. I shared with him the names that were on this list here that encompass the owners within 100 feet of the property, and I told him, compare this list to the list of the names that you have to see if you have the 20%, which was 11 individuals. So he went out, he got some more signatures. So I said, if you submitted all your signatures, I had my staff verify the signatures. Then I informed Mr. Wilson that you only had 7 names off of this list here that was on the list of the 20%. I say you still have additional time to get those additional 4 signatures, as long as you do it before the council takes action. There were no additional signatures turned in to meet the number 11 threshold. So therefore, it only required 4 votes for adoption of the ordinance. So I wanted to clarify that with the public. The final thing that I want to clarify, the former mayor mentioned that the closed session minutes were not in the packet. The former mayor knows good and well, and this is when I hate when misinformation is given to the community. Closed sessions that's the reason of a closed session. You do not, for the minutes to be a part of the public, there will be the reason for the closed session. But you cannot take action on anything in a closed session. So you can vote for the closed session minutes in a public meeting, but they cannot be included in the packet because it would very much say what happened in a closed session. So if you're discussing litigation, then you would put all the information in essence out there. So that's why the closed session minutes were not in the packet, but they have to be voted on in the open meeting. So I just want to clarify that all for the public. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Pivoting back, Mayor Grimal, closing comments?
Yeah, thank you, President McGinnis. I want to begin by addressing some of the issues that were raised by members of the audience. I did this earlier in the evening, but I again want to reiterate the difference between the master plan and the zoning map amendment that was approved tonight. The zoning map amendment was needed because there were zoning changes that were approved by City Council over the past roughly 10 years that were never voted on to be added to as map amendments. So that is the problem that was addressed tonight. The master plan process has begun, but that is going to take at least 9 months, maybe more like a year, and that was not voted on tonight. So I want to be really clear that tonight's action had nothing to do with the master plan, just to address that concern again. I also want to just make note that at least what they've said publicly on the record, the developer of the Mark Twain site, is not that wages would be $15 an hour. What they have said is that wages would be between $18 and $23 an hour. Now, I'm not suggesting that's going to make anybody rich, but at the same time, it's not bad for, in today's labor market, for those who don't have any education beyond high school, for those who don't have any specific training other than the on-the-job training that the employer in this case is going to provide. I also want to just touch on a couple of points that the previous mayor brought up. She talked about $19 million for developers downtown. I want to be clear what she's referring to. She didn't provide any context for that. What she's referring to is money that the state awarded to Oakland County that Oakland County used to buy downtown office buildings from the previous owner, and that they paid $19 million. None of those dollars were city dollars. I want to be really clear about that. They were dollars that Oakland County spent buying 2 privately owned office towers from a private owner and private developer. In a similar vein, I'll just note that, yes, there were some last-minute additions to the agreement with the county, and those additions were made on the advice of the city's attorney to actually make sure that the county does what it promises to do through that agreement. So for those members of the public who are skeptical of the county and their plans and whether they'll actually follow through on that, those last-minute additions should be welcome because they were important, and we were advised by the city's council that they're important to make sure that the county actually does what they're promising to do in the agreement. The other comment that was made by the previous mayor was that the $10 million that was allocated from the ARPA funds to the city's general fund should be used for the home repair program. I want to be clear that those $10 million still have to be tracked and reported to the federal government under the ARPA program. And we haven't yet made final decisions about how to allocate those dollars, but I will note that as we've allocated additional funding for more staff, for greater city services, that has put a strain on the budget. I'll also note that we actually were originally planning to do 3 phases of the home repair program, each of about $1.1 million. Because of the overwhelming demand for the program, we actually combined the first 2 phases with $2.2 million. And the biggest limit on capacity of that program has been staffing capacity and staffing time in terms of processing applications, in terms of having building inspectors out in the field approving the work, and so forth. We still have another $1.1 million for an additional phase of the home repair program. Plus, we've identified an additional $500,000 in grant funding. So we've got about another $1.6 million in additional funding for an additional phase of the home repair program. So those out there who are homeowners who were not able to participate in this first phase, please don't despair. There will be at least one more phase of that home repair program and possibly additional phases because we're actively working to identify additional funding for that program. I also wanted to touch on the concerns about abandoned buildings. It's a very serious concern. President McGinnis identified that we have, and we've talked about this at past meetings, that we have a lot of school buildings that have been abandoned, that are now privately owned, and we are working to redevelop not just the Mark Twain site, and by the way, the Mark Twain building, that old school building, will be totally demolished, so that's not going to be repurposed. It's going to be demolished and a new building built there because the existing building, like so many of our schools, is in really awful shape. And when I say our schools, I mean our abandoned schools. They've been sitting there vacant for many, many years and typically are beyond renovation. But we've approved a rezoning request for the Weaver School on the northwest side of the city. We are planning to demolish the McCarroll School, as President McGinnis said. We've been talking with potential developers of the Jefferson School and the Franklin School. So we are actively trying to redevelop, and of course we already talked about the Longfellow School tonight. So we are actively working to redevelop all of those school sites because it is very important. In terms of Purdue, we completely agree that it's frankly embarrassing that the city owns this dilapidated school building. I will just note that the only thing better than the city spending dollars to demolish a school is having someone else spend the dollars to demolish that school. And I'm happy to say that we've identified an entity that wants to acquire the Purdue School and has agreed to pay to demolish the Purdue School. And our economic development manager, Deborah Younger, is working with that entity to develop a written agreement. That's currently being drafted, and we hope and plan to bring that before City Council soon. Similarly, we have been pursuing grant dollars for demolition of buildings in the city, but I can tell you that demolishing all of the abandoned buildings in the city is certainly beyond the available funding we have. That's why we have actively pursued court action against private owners of property to force them to pay for their blighted mess. And we've had some success in doing so. The properties, for example, at University Drive and the east side of the Woodward Loop were demolished at the owner's expense as opposed to taxpayer expense. So we will continue to work very diligently to demolish buildings throughout the city, but please know that we don't have enough dollars available to ourselves pay to demolish all of them. That's why we're working so diligently to actually hold those property owners accountable. And Mr. President, that's all I have.
Thank you. Clerk Doyle, anything further for closing comments? I know you've addressed it essentially. Okay. Councilman Rutherford, representing District 1.
Successful people have a bigger fear of failure than people who have never done anything, because if you haven't been successful, then you don't know how it feels to lose it all. That was said by Jay-Z. I heard so many things said today by some people, some who by these individuals who try to bully council to support their businesses but have yet to show actual success story. Some were said by women who actually have threatened previous council members and lied. Another individual states that she works for code enforcement and for the federal government and that she has a business, yet while doing research while I was running for an election, there's no such business that actually exists. Then actually, lastly, an individual who lied and had a family member bring an actual gun to City Hall and threaten Chuck Johnson, and he had to fight to be able to come back in here during the session, and that's who they want me to listen to. I listen because just like they say they lived here, I've lived here my entire life. I was
Order in the chambers. Councilman has the floor.
I was born and raised here. But the truth is, I listen. I understand your frustration. I listen to homeowners. I listen to people facing evictions. I listen to people who need job creations. And I listen to people who have never, ever had to ever own homes and have the dreams to. But I will never listen to individuals who actually lie and make up businesses that don't exist, who won't fund it but won't provide real data. I listen to all my district and continue to do so. So let me apologize that the arguing and the banter doesn't scare me. Let me apologize that I will not write you a blank check. I will not allow you to use words that are slanderous. I especially will not allow you to use an incident that happened to me as a weaponization, because unlike other people, I don't back down, I don't beg, and I'm not afraid to tell the truth. It is offensive to me that people think because they're older that they have the right to disrespect people. I'm 44 years old. And just to give you context, I have been on my own since I was 17, and I slept under the Phoenix Center. And I put my daughter through school, and I've been raising her all by myself, and I never disrespect anybody unless they disrespect me. The only time I have disrespected someone is because I felt that they were a threat to me, and I have apologized for it, and now they try to use the same one incident against me today. Let me be clear. I heard you in District 6, and I have sympathy, and I have empathy, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's for the best for the whole city, and not just for several individuals. I will hold them accountable, because I do that in every other thing that I do. But no one will come here and be disrespectful and threaten people and say things that are absolutely not true based on emotion. I take care of my district. Just like, for example, on October the 28th, we have our District 1 meeting. You can come from District 6 and District 1. Everyone is invited because we want everybody to have a seat at the table. Number 2, I take care of my district because November the 18th, we're giving away 800 brand new coats because people in my district need coats and food and actually need shelter. And also, we do more things in District 1 than most people do because I actually, at the end of the day, outside of being in this capacity, I'm a community outreach and enrollment specialist, and I help people get what they need so that their families can thrive. I apologize because I am not afraid. I apologize because you don't scare me when you say recall. I apologize because you don't scare me when you're saying y'all better watch out, because that's a threat to me. And I have, just like you have a right to say what you have to say, I have a right to feel, and if I have a right to protect me and the council here. And to Mr. McGinnis and to the rest of the council, I understand that we have to make the hard decisions. And to Mayor Grimer, I understand that they don't like us, but guess what? If we were doing so bad, it would be more people down here than the same individuals who are trying to threaten us because we won't do what they want us to do. So hold your head up high. I am not going to apologize. I am not going to apologize to anyone who feels they have the right to disrespect me as a woman first, and secondly, as a councilwoman, because I deserve to be at this table. I've earned the right to be at this table, and I'm going to stay at this table until God gets me removed. And that's my thing, and have a good evening.
Representing District 3, Councilman McHale Goodman.
So I feel like I have to mention this every couple weeks. I am not bought and paid for by anyone because my...
Your mic ain't
I believe it is. I'm not bought and paid for by anyone because as long as I still have the amount of debt that I do, worrying about how I'm going to pay bills every month, I am still rather poor on this council, and there's no inflow of money that's going to me for any decision that I make, nor would I ever want it to be, because I like being able to fight for the things that my constituents elected me on. When I ran for office, when I knocked doors, when I made phone calls, when I went repeatedly to people over the entire course of a year, people came back to me with 3 main things. The roads being repaired and us having good infrastructure, us having jobs in the city because too many people had to leave and work elsewhere and could not get paid to do work within the city. And then the thing that I yell about on a regular basis being housing and slumlords, and the fact that we have a bunch of land speculators who hold on to all the property in the city of Pontiac, making it next to impossible for people to own, to rent affordably, or to be able to do actual things in the city of Pontiac that benefits our citizens. With all that being said, my constituents wanted jobs, housing accountability, so that they were not being screwed over on a regular basis by the number of slumlords that are throughout our city, and making sure that we fix our roads and infrastructure. I have done everything that I can. I'm continuing to try to, and I would encourage anyone who feels that I'm not doing enough in those things that my citizens ask me to do to help me out, to talk to me, to give me further ideas to further what my constituents have asked for. And also, I encourage my constituents to come to my district meetings and let me know if the priorities have changed, because that's what I want to hear. What I want to hear from the people who are in my district, because things have to get done. Now, I encourage all of you to come to my district meeting. That is Monday, October 30th at 5 p.m. at the Baldwin Center. It switches back and forth between the Baldwin Center and the Oakland County Historical Society to get both sides of my district. I encourage all of you to come out because we will have Tiffany Luke from the county, who does community engagement, to come and talk to the citizens, and so hopefully you can have that connection to know how to be able to connect with the county in case you need anything that's beyond our pay grade, but also just being more integrated. But I firmly want to push back against the idea that any developer, has bought me, because if anyone has ever heard me speak at this council meeting on a repeated basis, to the point that some of the people in the audience call me out for it, I do not like or bend to the will of corporations or people with money or people with names, because I have none of those things. I've never been raised to respect people who just have a name or who have money, given that I grew up in the Riverside, poor, Section 8, not knowing half the time if my lights would stay on or if I'd be able to eat an actual meal for dinner. I do this work because I truly believe in doing this work for people. There is nothing that I have to stand on other than the fact that I went and knocked on doors and that I have a mission and a mandate from the people who elected me. Now, if I can improve on that, I want to know. I want the people to be able to tell me, especially my constituents, people in my district who I am fighting for, to tell me how to improve. That is the purpose of doing this work. If you have to tell me that I'm doing something wrong, then come tell me that I'm doing something wrong. But when I get calls about concerns and issues, and I try to my best to handle them. When constituents call me about issues in the district, I try to handle them. Because that, to me, is my job, is being a person who does constituency service more than anything. And I want to do my best to make sure that I'm improving on that and fighting for the policies that people ask me to do. So with that, again, I encourage everyone, especially District 3 residents, to show up to my district meeting at the Baldwin Center, 212 Baldwin Avenue, Pontiac, Michigan, at 5 p.m. this upcoming Monday, because I want to be able to hear. I want to be able to also give report backs about the things that I am doing for District 3 and for the city, because I want people, if they don't have faith in me, to give me a chance to show them the work that I'm doing. And that may not change your faith in me or my work, but I want to be transparent in why I do the things that I do, why I make the decisions that I make, because this is not for me. This is for the people who elected me, but also for the fact that I have to fight for people who look like me and come from the same backgrounds as me. And that includes people who are my age, who have no future in the city, who have felt like they haven't had a future in the city and have done everything they can to go elsewhere. I do not want people to continue to go elsewhere. That means bringing things like jobs, like affordable, high-quality housing, like bring opportunity to the city that is not just for people with money or people who have the money to be able to move to Pontiac and gentrify it, but being able to make sure that this city is actually for the people who already live here and the people who, if they were to come here, would love this city just as hard as we all do. That is why I do what I do. There is no ulterior motive. So with that, I wish everyone a good evening and good night.
District 4, Councilwoman James.
Yes, District 4 will hold its final community council holiday meeting and celebration on Monday, November the 6th. Most of our meetings are held on Thursday night, but this holiday meeting will take place on Monday, November the 6th, starting at 5:30. It's a dinner meeting, so we'll be serving a soul food menu, and we start serving at 5:30, and the meeting will start at 6. Our special guests on that night will be State Representative Brenda Carter, Mayor Tim Grimel, our Code Enforcement Manager Jack McIntyre, and also our Community Policing Sergeant Thurko. This meeting will take place at the new Mount Moriah International Church, 313 Walton Boulevard, which is right across from the Dollar Tree store. So the public is invited, and I hope that we will see the biggest crowd that we have seen this year. We hope to have a really good time. Aside from that, I just want to say that tonight has been particularly difficult. These jobs are not easy, and I can see why people don't you say, well, why can't we get, the right people to run? I can see why that we just struggle getting people to run for these positions because they are not easy. I myself am disappointed in some of the votes that took place on tonight. I have to say that. I've not been disappointed in a lot of things that we've done. I'm proud overall of the work that this council has done. But I have to say that I'm disappointed tonight. And when I look at our logo, and you look at that heart there, Pontiac, the heart of Oakland County, I think we lost some heart tonight. And that hurts me. That bothers me. But that's the way that it is. Thank you.
District 5, Councilman William Parker, Jr.
Thank you, Brother President. I think as I look down the line, I can say it's all been said that needs to be said tonight, and I'll just say good night.
District 6, Council President Pro Tem William
Yes,
A.
thank
Carrington.
you, President McGinnis. I'm going to say a few words. I know that people like to place these narratives out here. I've been on some votes where I won, I've been on some votes where I lost. And I take the same stance that I do not beat up my colleagues for any vote that they take. And I'm not going to beat up nobody tonight for any vote that they take. I have voted for and against things in their district, and they didn't beat me up. So I'm not going to beat my colleagues up. But I do want to say is that people seem to want this council and mayor to fail. Well, if that's true, then that means the residents also fail, and that hurts the residents. See, for 12 years I've been in this city, I never wanted a mayor to fail or a council to fail. Never, never, never. Because I want the best for the city, whether I'm on that side or this side, or whether what vote I'm taking. I want the best for the city. If I wasn't in the seat, whoever's the 6th district council person, I want them to be successful at this seat. So it's kind of flabbergasted to see people openly say they want the council to fail. And that's interesting, because if we fail, the city doesn't move forward. If we fail, the city doesn't move forward. So tonight, I don't want this council to fail. I want this council to be very successful. I want the mayor's office to be very successful. And even if we voted out of office in a year and a half, 2 years, I still want the incoming council, incoming administration to be successful in saying that. Pride beautification, 133 Oliver Street, Miss Martinez. Well, it's the best home in the 6th district when it comes to pride beautification. 2 runner-ups, 56 Carr Street and 218 Gage Street. So please, I've knocked on the doors a few times in the past week. No one came to the door. So if you know of those individuals, please let them know that they receive runner-up awards for pride and beautification. And good night.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mike McGinnis, District 7, always the shortest end of the stick since it comes last, but c'est la vie. Points were really effective points were made tonight. I do want to offer some responses or clarifications. It was mentioned that the City Council voted to rezone Weaver School. There was a proposal, but it was not successful. There is a follow-up proposal that does not require rezoning that has come before us, but that's been presented at the subcommittee level and has been discussed. That would be a less dense use that deals with the current zoning for the Weaver School. So I just want to clarify that. It was also stated that a mayor speaking for 7 minutes and closing comments is unusual or long. That's not true. We maintained the same length as the previous council and the previous council rules. There was a few years ago where it was, and these were dark days, but 15 minutes closing comments, you may remember, filibusters that the previous mayor would offer. So it is definitely not the longest, but it is not unusual on the seven minutes, and that was strategically done. It was contemplated about, is that too much? But we want to be able to have the mayor whose staff reports to him or whomever the mayor is at the time, but our present mayor, that they would be able to answer questions, give us updates on what's happening in terms of the operations, and provide answers in real time to what comes on during the meeting. So that's why but each January we revisit that. But that is the same amount that the previous council rules was that length of time. It was offered up that I previously served on the school board, so therefore, implication that I was involved or engaged in previous school closures. I served from 2017 to the beginning of 2022, so through 2021, that was 5 years. There were 3 properties that the school district owned that during my time were sold or they're considered to be sold. One of them had a building, and that was Bethune School on Lake Street. That was sold in approximately 2019 to a private property owner, and they promptly tore that down. It was shocking how quickly it was. But in about 2019, sadly, the Bethune School and its history was lost to the wrecking ball. The other 2 properties, one was Whitfield School, Daniel Whitfield in Sylvan Lake on Orchard Lake Road. It was already a vacant land, but that was sold to benefit the taxpayers of the school district. The Hawthorne School next to Hawthorne Park, that was considered, and that was even being considered before I ever joined the school board. It was vacant land, but ultimately a sale was never closed. There was a developer that wanted to do some senior housing, and I don't think they got the approvals that they needed or the rezoning. So that came and went. They never purchased the land. So I just want to point that out. And to my knowledge, when then school board trustee William Carrington was on the school board, those sales in 2012 and 2013, they had also already taken place prior to his time on the school board. So I just want to put that out there. But it raises a really excellent point, and it's something that if you've been following me, you know that I'm not new to the matter. It's part of the reason why the subcommittee that I lead tries to bang the drum on this. It's why each month at our District 7 meetings, we ask for the staff and the administration to report what gives with these massive blighted structures in our district. And that's something that I've tried to amend the city's budget to add demolition dollars. Wasn't successful, but the administration shared various different other ways that would still be accomplished. So here's the awful 18. The awful 18 are large, blighted, vacant structures, many of them schools, not all of them. And Ms. Dowell, I hear you loud and clear. I've tried to carry that torch, but I can be more consistent to make it a bigger priority. There are so many demands on city time, so many demands on limited city dollars. I want to make it a point, because it's been a priority of mine. I want to see more results on this. Of the 18, 4 of them are owned by all of us, the taxpayers of Pontiac. One, first and foremost, I won't even choose my personal number one that's in my district, but the first and foremost, I think, is McCarroll School. It's not in my district, but it is owned now. We intentionally bought it for the purposes of building a youth recreation center. And the intention that has been communicated to me is that the best use is, or the best way to go forward is McCarroll to come down. So let's bring it down. Let's move the needle. Let's see results. Secondly, also owned by us taxpayers, Purdue School. As soon as I got in, I don't really care at this point about the backstory about whose fault it is that the taxpayers own it. Yes, it predates all of us, but it is our burden and our responsibility, and the residents have been suffering long enough. Next, there is a property at the border of 6 and 7 on University Drive at M59. You might not know it, but it's owned by the city of Pontiac, and it is atrocious. It is where there are sometimes coffins outside of it. It's large brush and overgrowth, graffiti on the front and back. The administration's answer to me when I've asked when it will be resolved, will it have a coat of paint, will it be trimmed back, is that it's going to get demolished. It's going to get demolished. We are coming in on 2 years here, and so that is one of the 4 that us taxpayers own. And finally, it's the Ewalt Center located off of Perry in the Galloway Lake Park. I would like to see a path forward. What's the path forward? The status quo is unacceptable. So I'll very quickly name check the 18, and I'll keep this scorecard, and I'll more frequently and publicly check in on this so that way we make it a shared priority, so that way we meet the moment and don't allow the time to go further. So you heard the first four: McCarroll, Purdue, the University Drive at M59 property that's kind of used for cemetery maintenance, but derelict, and the Ewald Center. These are the remaining properties that I have on the awful 18. I should make it actually the nightmarish 19, because I've just thought of another. I'm adding now Glenwood Plaza to the menu as well. But Central School, District 7, Emerson School, District 5, but near a few other districts, Weaver School, District 4, Webster School, District 2, LeBaron School, I think it's 4, but it might be
No,
6.
6. 6
Okay,
and 4.
so 6. Franklin School, District 1, Mark Twain School, District 6, Jefferson School, District 1, Whittier School, District 1. I'll give them each their own spot on the list because they're so big. They're kind of their own school, but attached. And District 2, Washington School, District 7, Longfellow School, District 3, Lincoln School, Lincoln Middle School. In District 2, it's not a school, but Roshire Court, a terrible and atrocious property that has been discussed at length, City Council advocating for it. So, and then of course I added Glenwood Plaza, even though there's been some breakthrough legally. So that's nightmare 19 that I want us as a community to make a shared priority, that we need to move the needle on it. This is the highest level of staffing we had for code enforcement in decades. We now are building out an economic development team. This is the highest number of planners we have had in probably 10 to 15 years. We have the capacity, we have the talent, we have the ingenuity. The resources will be a challenge, but we have to see results. So these are the nightmare 19 that I will keep checking in at the subcommittee level, at the district level, our weekly engagement with the administration and their leadership, but then also as needed in engaging here at the council meetings. So I will say there were 2 small victories. There was a burned out, abandoned homes, 2 of them. They were at University Drive near the Woodward Loop. Those were torn down earlier this year at no cost to the taxpayers. I celebrate that win, but I need more results for the nightmare 19. And I know that those residents who live near that or have lived with it, have seen it, have lost a lot of hope, have lost a lot of confidence that anything will be done ever. And I know some of these, like the one across from me, it's been like that and rotting for upwards of 4 decades. And it's pretty atrocious. So I will keep my nightmare 19, and hopefully as the months and years go on, we can bring this list down and down. Doesn't mean demolition alone is the answer. And wherever possible, I don't want us taxpayers to have to be the one to foot the bill, but we are the one bearing the cost and the burden of inaction. So, for the sake of time, well, that was a long time, so I can't even pretend it's about time. So, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington. All right, hearing no discussion, roll call on adjournment. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are adjourned at